Thank you for the bits, Cora. Welcome in, friends. Thank you, Alyssa, hyping it up. We got a hype train before I even officially went live. That doesn't happen very often. I really appreciate it. Thank you all so much for that. I am doing a D&D stream officially for real this time. It's gonna happen. Damn it. We'll see how it actually goes, because again, I'm a little nervous, but we'll see how this whole process goes, because I'm not too concerned in the category of the tech failing this time around, because I got two machines running things. But again, bear with me because this is my first shot. I'm gonna give this a try on stream, and hopefully it can be something that we can do on a regular basis. The first thing that I'm noticing is that some of my stuff is freaking out in regards to the video feeds that I got of the players that will be joining us momentarily. So I will have to fix that once I switch into that scene. But for the time being, we're here. We're going to play some Dungeons & Dragons, but not just a regular D&D. We are going to be doing D&D 101, a starter's guide to rolling and role-playing. This is a little bit presentation, a little bit actual playing and gaming with individuals. It's a little bit of a session 0, a little bit of a D&D class, a little bit of a combat encounter, and then a little bit of a role-playing encounter. We're just trying to get, palates wet. We're trying to see if this is something that not only the people who are joining us today, but those who may be out there in chat and follower land that might be interested and don't really know enough about the game to jump in and play yourself. Now, we will be doing this based off, roughly based off of the starter set that you can get for like $20, $16-20 at Target or Walmart or Amazon. That starter set is what we're kind of basing this off of, and I did that on purpose. Hey, that emote actually means something now. I'm so happy. But things are going to be based off of that for one reason, and that's because I want people to be able to watch this either right now or later, or when I upload it to YouTube, because that's where it will be headed after this, and watch along and actually get out this kit and play along with us. If not, at least see what we're doing, why, and follow along in some of that material. So definitely check that out if you don't already have it. It's available everywhere, but it's the starter set, and it is the adventure, The Lost Mine of Phandelver. So that all being said, quick little, I know it's incredible. I'm really excited about it. It's a perfect introductory to get things up and running for people who have never played before. So a quick little reminder, I will be here tomorrow morning. I am going to be doing probably a little bit of cleanup from whatever happens today, to see what went right, what went wrong, and explore on that, so that way I can make sure that I can do this more often. The hype is real indeed. So yeah, I think with that we can switch over and get some introductions in order. I'll switch over to this real quick. Hey friends, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm bringing you on the stream.
You're still talking to me on stream at the moment.
Oh!
Yeah, same.
Oh
like
no!
hustling to get out of the stream.
Of course, all of your videos decided to reload as soon as I went live. But welcome in. Look, we have people. They're here. It's a real thing. We're going to be playing D&D. I am so excited because another reason, I haven't actually played or DM'd in quite a while, because I don't know if you know this, but the world is kind of on fire right now. So the amount of time that I have to mentally prepare for stuff and do my work and other life stuff, there's not much time. So when I have the opportunity, especially if I can make two of the things collide with streaming and D&D, I take that opportunity. But you all know me. Hopefully you do. If you don't, I'm Dustin. But we're going to pass things along and kind of introduce the individuals who are here, so that way you know what face matches what voice matches what name. And we'll go alphabetical, starting with Becca.
Hi, I'm Becca. Am I supposed to say something else?
No, you're
Okay.
thriving, so you don't need to.
Yeah, I'm thriving.
For those of you who don't know, that's Becca H. May in the Twitch chat. She is a total hype queen. She is fantastic. She's joined us in Chanland. Baka, for some of those who may know her as such, and I have to play it because she's here. Now, you all didn't hear that because it wasn't playing through your ears, but you will if you watch the stream. I did the secret tunnel. Also, up next, we have the amazing Jen right next to her.
Hi, I'm Jen.
She is actually Brownie Girl. She has joined us in Chanland as well. She does incredible work in Minecraft. Very, very excited to have her here. And cannot wait to play yet another game on stream with you. And then last but certainly not least, we have Cora.
Hi, friends. I'm Cora.
Cora is actually a student where I work. She is very, very close to graduating, not to put any anxiety in your world.
4 more months.
4 more months. But she does great work there and has become a part of the Chan fam a little recently, I would say, like last month, 2 months. Yeah, exactly. That she has joined the fam and has been a good resource and cheers like crazy. I appreciate it so much that you dropped those corgis. But yeah, again, as today rolls along, I'm gonna try my best. Oh, of course, drop in more. But I'm gonna perfect timing, absolutely perfect timing. But I'm gonna try my best to go through today as a part presentation, part actual gaming, so that way we can make sure that what we're doing is informative. So that way, if the three of you want to play again, you have the basic tools to do so, whether it's another dungeon master that joins you, or if it's us getting back together and playing something different, or continuing what we start today, because what we're doing today is the introduction to an adventure. So if it's something that you're just like, oh, I really liked chapter 1, what comes next? Maybe we'll do it again someday, as long as scheduling allows, because that's one of the number one killers of a D&D campaign is scheduling. Hey, Messy Mouse 10, how are you? Another thing that I did want to mention up front is that I'm going to try my best, chat, to pay attention to the players tonight. I will be looking at the chat, and I know the three of you probably have chat or the stream or something up and around, so you might be interacting, but I'm going to try my best to stick to what I'm presenting today. So if I miss messages in chat, I do apologize. I do got some mods out there that will be interacting, dropping appropriate links, making sure that things are doing what they're doing. But yeah, so if I miss something, I apologize. But D&D takes a lot of attention, so I'm going to try my best to balance as best as I can. But, you know, I might miss something. So bear with me in that regard. But up front, I wanted to start. Let me move my mouse over here. Where is my mouse? There it is. I'm gonna shut this music off. That way we can get more into the adventuring mood, if you will. See if this actually works. Can you all hear the music under me? Awesome. Okay, so welcome everyone here in the stream, there out in chat, and anybody who may be watching this on a VOD or YouTube or wherever, to D&D 101, a starter's guide to rolling and role-playing. It's all good. Thank you. So today, what we are going to go over is a handful of chapters, is the way that I've devised things. We're going to do a prologue, which is going to be introductions not only like we already introduced ourselves in regards to who we are as individuals and how you may be connected to me, but I want to get a little bit more of an introduction of who you are at the table and what you can bring to the table, so that way when we start playing, if something presents itself and you go, oh, that's a puzzle, she said she loves puzzles, what do you think about this? Or, oh, this is this, you know, big battle and I know she has a great axe, so I'm going to put her to the front of the line. Like that sort of stuff. So that way you can know not only character-wise, but player-wise what you're able to bring to the game. Because as much as I'm bringing this information of the game to you, I need to get some stuff from you guys to be able to play this game evenly. Because as much as a DM is orchestrating the game itself, it is a collaborative thing. It's meant to be, I present, you react, I change everything, and then we keep going forward. Because I am just a rule smith as a DM. I take what is presented on the page, adjust it to what we're doing, and then presenting it to you all, and then you presenting it back to me. So after we get done with that, we'll jump into the actual game mechanics, the very beginnings, the nitty-gritty of how things work in a general sense. Because as much as I'd love to explain it all at once, we're gonna have to do this in steps, because there's some things to this that are a little bit more complicated. That being said, almost all of this is something that, as long as you have a character sheet and a rough estimation of where things are on that sheet, you should, in theory, be able to just ask questions the entire time to end up being able to play this game. It's not something you need to know everything up front. As much as I have all these books up here, the Player's Handbook, Monster's Manual, Dungeons Master's Guide, Xanathar's Guide to Everything, all of these fancy books, at the end of the day, a character sheet, pencil, paper, and in this case, you know, a computer screen and an iPad and a webcam and a microphone. As long as you have these pieces, you should be able to jump in and play. After we go over the basic mechanics, we'll jump into the character sheet process, because I do have pre-built characters for you all, but they are missing some pieces of information. The number one things are the name and the gender, the physical attributes, a couple of the spells if you pick some magic spell casting individuals. But overall, I had these characters for you, so that way we can go over the how, and then you can jump right in. That we're not spending, because if we're being honest, some sessions can take upwards of 2 hours just to build characters. And I don't want to do the first 2 hours of this stream meticulously trying to figure out the best character to build, when we can give you something to get going and that you can just rolling. You don't have to know the entire history of the tiny top hat on Monopoly to want that piece. You just grab the piece and you go.
I prefer
from there,
the thimble.
What? You're a thimble person?
Yeah.
Good to know. I don't think we have a thimble in the game. Top hat is elite. See, we already got conflicting reports in the chat, so. But the other part of this that we're going to touch on, it's probably the meat and potatoes of things, is combat. That'll be chapter 3. We'll go over what combat entails. And again, this is just the sprinkling of information, because at the end of the day, if we get into combat and there's something that we haven't talked about, but as a player, you feel that's what you would try to do, as the DM, it's my job to look back in the knowledge of D&D and figure out a way that you can do it with the way the game works. So if you go, I want to do, I want to jump into the fire and splash around and hopefully get it in their eyes, I have to figure out a role that you can do to make sure that that's possible. So those sort of things come up that I'm just going to go over the basics, and it's up to you as players to go, yeah, but what if I did this instead? So that can be a lot of fun. After that, we'll talk about adventuring. That part's a little bit more of a quick process, because it's just telling like the stuff that's in between combat, the stuff that's in between encounters. So when you're going from place to place, or you're deciding to stop at an inn, or you want to buy a drink, that sort of stuff, those mechanics are in there. And then the final chapter of kind of this presentation side is the spellcasting side, which if any of you pick one of the magic wielders, you get the opportunity to pick one of the spells from the list that most fits your character, but also just sounds cool to you, because there's, the list isn't too long, but the lists that are possible for your specific type of class can be a couple spells long. So being able to pick those yourselves, as opposed to me telling you this spell, gets you more involved in that process. And after we go through all of that, we're going to jump into a small little intro session of sorts from the Lost Mine of Fandelver. It comes with the starter kit. Pew pew magic missile, exactly. And we'll do a little bit of an actual how this game would actually start in real life, so that way you can get the idea of what this could be like the next time you do it. Or if this is your last time, you could check that box and move on to the next thing. But yeah, that's the basic overview of what we're getting ourselves into. Any questions up front before we kind of get started into the process? Okay, sounds good. Okay, so first, today we are going to do what I call Session 0 Abridged. A Session 0 is something that happens in D&D where you're getting to know not just the game, but each other. Like, what is going to happen? So as players, there's a cool little, we can call it an icebreaker, but it's not as awkward as a normal icebreaker, because this is a cool, nerdy game, so we're not going to play a real icebreaker. But there are a couple questions that I like to ask as a DM of the players at the table, whether they're seasoned players, they've played a couple times, or in this case, probably never touched dice. Or if you have, you're not exactly sure how they work. Or hell, you might be an expert and you're just keeping it from me, and this was your way to show me. I don't know. That's what I'm looking at Becca for, is that she's a seasoned D&D nerd and she just has kept it from me this whole time.
Yeah, that's definitely it.
Yeah. So the questions that I want to ask, and we can just go around in the order that we introduced ourselves, is that what is the one thing that you love about role-playing games, RPGs? Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be this sort of RPG. It can be a video one. There's Final Fantasy, there's Diablo, there's World of Warcraft, there's all of these role-playing games. And if you haven't played one, what intrigued you to want to try this?
Probably just the conceptualization of anything can happen. I think that's what's really intriguing about these games.
I would agree with that. The fact that we can create this game as we go is really, really enticing, and probably one of the main reasons back in college I decided, I want to try this. That's awesome. How about you, Jen?
I think that the biggest thing for me is a lot of my friends play D&D, and I see a lot of it on TikTok and stuff, of campaigns that people live stream on TikTok. So it just it's always been something that I've wanted to try, but just haven't had the opportunity.
Yeah. No, and just like I mentioned in my original DM is in the chat right now. The one who got me into D&D is in Twitch chat, which is kind of surreal, a little nerve-wracking, because I want to make him proud. Oh my god! He just mentioned my first character I ever played. I am swooning right now. Oh my god. Do you have that character sheet, Kelly? Because that would be amazing. Anyway, moving on. So, but yeah, that whole everybody seems to be playing and having a good time, and I really respect these people's ideas. Maybe I should try it.
Might.
What? Oh my god, if he finds it, I'm going to post it on Discord. So again, friends, if you're not on Discord, check it out, because we're just nerds. It's great. And then finally, Cora, what brought you here? What do you like about RPGs?
Is everyone I work with on a daily basis, on campus and off, plays D&D and talks about D&D. And I like watching people play video games. It's like a pick your own adventure movie. And I want to be a character and a pick your own adventure.
Hey, no, and this is, again, like, I have the little adventure book that I have for this campaign. It is wholeheartedly step by step. Like, at the end of the day, there's this, there's that. But as characters, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be step 1, 2, 3, 4. It could be 1, 4, 2, 3, then we go to 6, and like that could be how it is, but eventually we end up to some conclusion. One of the campaigns that I run on a regular basis, haven't done it in a while, sorry everyone who's in that campaign, but we actually started a campaign and I was in this hope that it was going to go in one direction, but the players decided, nope, we're going to be this sort of party. And I was like, okay, let's see how that goes. And we haven't touched the original story I wrote for them in over a year. It is so different now, but we're having an absolute blast because we're able to create this together. So expectations is something that I wanted to go over with you all real quick, because at the end of the day, this game, like I said, is not just me letting you play in my world. It's us playing in each other's world. And I want to make sure that those things are, things that we love the most are available to us. And if somebody came here for a specific reason, that we can try our best to get that. Now, in regards to the gameplay itself, yeah, collaborative storytelling for the win. In regards to the game itself, what part, I'll give you a list, what part of this game are you most excited about? Would it be combat, exploration and puzzles, or the role-playing aspect? Becca.
Oh, I was going to say magic, but that's not an option.
Okay, well,
I guess
it's
the roleplay part?
Yeah, it's not an option, but it should be. I should put that on this list. Thank you. I'm going to add it to my list. Add it to the list.
I want to do as much magic as possible.
Okay, well then there's a couple characters in particular that I think you're going to love. So, so excellent. Okay, so the magic part of it, the spell casting, the fantasy, that sort of stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah.
How about you, Jen?
I think kind of like the combat and possibly like, I don't know, I always see people always throwing a lot of their DMs like under like just kind of like shocking them, I guess. So I think I'm kind of like looking forward to more of like the like what we can do in combat that might like surprise you or something different.
A little
like
bit of chaos mixed in there, perhaps.
Okay, so I have to worry about all of you. That's great. But no, and see, that's the fun about it is like, I mean, Becca can talk about this, is that we played Monopoly like a week and a half ago or so. And even though I was losing so badly, I was still having an absolute blast just being a part of the game. That like, I was watching my money disappear. I was selling my properties so I could stay in the game as long as possible. And me and Pumpkin were just like, I think we're gonna lose. But we stayed involved and we were watching the process, because it's like, even if things don't go the way you hoped, you still are gonna have fun. And D&D encapsulates that to the fullest. So I'm so excited for you to completely screw me over. And then Cora, what one of those kind of excites you the most? Chaos, okay. Well, it's not on the list, but I guess I gotta add it.
Puzzles.
Puzzles, okay, cool. Yeah. And puzzles are something, one of the first things that actually, and I'm really mad that my first character that I ever played had an intelligence of like super, super low, is because I love puzzles. Puzzle games are incredible. But the player that I was doing would never love puzzles. So it was one of those like, great, so I'll watch you all do the puzzles and I'll just sit over here and be dumb. But I still had a blast, because my character looking at puzzles would have been like, this is stupid, I'm just going to break it with my axe. And he would just shatter the puzzle instead. And that would be awesome. So it was a give and take. And then the last thing that I want to ask of you as players is, what strength do you bring to this game? What is something that you can do as a player that you feel that you can bring to this game that is going to be either useful or fun? I mean, a sense of whimsy is always good to have at a D&D table. But what's something that you bring as a player? So not as a character, we'll get into that soon, but as a player that you think would really be beneficial to the other players at the table or to the game overall. And you can get introspective or you can just be simple about it. It's either or.
Probably like, I don't know, creative problem solving. They can give a pretty good head on like figuring out ways around problems or like alternative ways to solve problems. So probably that.
I would totally agree with that. So yeah, and that's the other thing is I know the three of you might not know each other very well, if at all, except for hearing your voices in Chanland. Yes. But I do think that, you know, if there's something that you're not quite sure that you might bring, we might discover it tonight. We might go, that is a fantastic little spot for you as a player to emphasize and push up this team. So you might not know it right now, but we might learn it by the end of the night. So Jen, what strength do you think you bring?
Honestly, I really don't know.
That's okay.
Teamwork, knowing how to like lead and having teamwork like experience with a lot of that.
Excellent. And teamwork makes the dream work, and DreamWorks makes movies. So we got that going for us. Chaos is a skill, says Alyssa. And then Cora,
yes!
what strength?
Thriving in chaos. That's what we all bring.
Thriving in chaos. Okay, great. Oh, wow. Tonight's going to be a time, isn't it? Okay.
I am a very witty and I think fast on my feet.
Oh, great. And this game can come at you pretty fast. I mean, one thing.
Yeah, how fast that was? You didn't even see me.
One thing that I know, and we'll talk about combat a little bit later in more detail, but one thing that is interesting to know about combat is that one round of D&D, so every creature in the combat goes once, is 6 seconds in real time. So to expect, like, even if that one round takes 5 minutes because of how many people are actually playing and making their actions and stuff like that, in real world, it's actually 6 seconds that have passed, which means that whole quick thinking definition of what you would do if this was real. So
Tell us when you're learning how to drive in 6 seconds you can die. What can happen?
I mean, yeah, but let's not go there. But there are no cars in this session. But yes, so great. And I think it kind of goes without saying when it comes to the strengths that I bring is that I know the game. That I am hopefully going to be able to bring you along this path in such a way that if you're just like, okay, so I'm trying to think, is there a way to do this that I can present to you at least a working knowledge of the game, so that way you can go through this process with as few speed bumps as possible. So as a player of the game, I know the game pretty well. I would say like 7.5 out of 10. Because there's still so much, especially from the lore side, like trying to figure out, oh, well, such and such is a member of this faction, which hates this faction. Yeah, I don't know that, because I haven't had to interact with it.
Failing after this, I'm going to spend a lot of money on books.
I mean, if you need to borrow some, let me know before you buy them. I got a few. But yeah, that's what I think, at least from my standpoint. And I mentioned expectations before. Kind of got ahead of myself with there, but the things that I want to kind of get out of the way is just kind of the expectations of what, while we're playing, not only what I'm hoping and expecting from you as players, but vice versa, is that what you can expect from me as we play. I have no problem with you guys snacking or eating if it's crunchy or something like that. Try to do like mute yourself real quick or whatever it might be. But I have no problem with that. Because things are a little bit more presentational, I'd appreciate if you don't partake of anything that could inhibit your, moving on. Which could have totally been a conversation later. But, so, and speaking of distractions, smartphones and stuff like that, things can be pretty quick. So if you are using a smartphone or your other smart devices, iPad, computer, stuff like that, try to focus things on the game as best you can. Becca, and it went to Jen.
Oh my God, perfect.
I love this community.
Also, Dustin, do you know that Jen and I know each other?
I had a
We
feeling.
were in Thai together. Yeah.
I had a very strong feeling because I've learned another corgis. I've learned, especially through Pumpkin, that the world is really small, and I never realize it until I take a look at it real quick. So, so another thing that I do want to mention is that I will never expect from you, and please don't expect it from me, that this is going to be a intense stay in character method acting role-playing adventure. I do not expect you all to answer me in character in a voice. However you want to present your actions to me is acceptable. If you want to say, I think, my character would do this. Can I try that? That is acceptable. Or if you want to have if you want to talk like your character, do that too. I don't mind either way, as long as the action and the information is passed along. One thing that I do want to discuss, especially since it is such a short time frame, we're not going to do player versus player sort of interactions. So if you decide, paying it forward, thank you. Holy crap, everything's happening. But so if you decide that one of the players is not treating you the way that you expect, please don't whip out a sword and smack them with it. Like, don't do any stuff like that, because chaos is a thing, but be chaotic to the world, not to each other. Make sense?
Right.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Now, if this continues and we decide to play again, I might bring that discussion back up. You never know.
A little whack.
Another thing is that I want, like I mentioned, I want this to be, as best as we can, a collaborative process. So if there's something like there's a big like killing blow of some creature that you want to describe what you do, I'll have you roll it. I'll tell you if you killed it or not, or whatever it is, and I will give you free reign to tell me how it goes. Now, if you don't think that you have the pieces to be able to put that together, and you're just like, I just slice its throat, I will ask you if it's okay if I explain it a little bit further and I go into more detail. So if that's something that you want to tackle, go for it, because it can be a lot of fun explaining how you take out a giant. I mean, if you're a wizard, you might stick your wand up its nose or something like that, a la Harry Potter. But again, the descriptions, it's something that one of the few things that I kind of pride myself on when it comes to D&D is that I can take something as simple as somebody walking down a path and explain it in such details that makes it sound like it's an important plot point. That's the sort of person that I am when I explain things in D&D. So if you want to give that a shot, by all means, I will give you the opportunity. Otherwise, I'll take over and explain how something goes. And then, finally, and this is kind of like a two-part thing, is I'll be as best as I can during this process. I will try to explain to you how the rules are working, So if you're just like, hey, I would love to try this, and if I say, actually, that's not possible because of X, Y, and Z, I'm not really expecting any of you to backtalk just because you haven't really played. So I don't know if you know any of the rules, but if you do, I am okay with us having a discussion about a rule. Like if you go, hey, I don't understand why you said I can't do that. Can you explain it to me? And we can have that talk. I don't want somebody to be like, my character would do that, let me do it, because that turns into a huge thing. Chaos is okay, as long as it's controlled chaos and we know what we're doing. And then that brings to another side point, which is I am perfectly fine with you all swearing. This isn't a PG stream by any means. And if I put this out on YouTube, I'll probably add bleeps and stuff like that so I can actually monetize it. But I'm perfectly fine with this. I consider this to be PG-13. All of the subject matter is around PG-13, but we are hacking and slashing. We are in a fantasy world, but it's not Game of Thrones. It's Lord of the Rings, if you want a content barrier of sorts. Yeah, we're not the first episode of Game of Thrones. Cool? Cool. Yes, Jen just made the face that yes. But yeah, so that is kind of the expectations overall. Now, framework, just to give you an idea of what you're getting yourself into when it comes to this campaign, even though it might just be tonight, is that we are playing in a world called the Forgotten Realms. It's the main world of Dungeons and Dragons. It's been around since the very first version, and it's pushed us to now. A lot of campaign settings are in this world, and others spawn from it. They're like demi-planes, or like way up in the north, and we've never known it was there, or super far in the south, and it's been sunken in the ocean. Like, there's a bunch of things like that, but it all kind of spawns from this Forgotten Realms area. Now, Becca, you mentioned magic. This game definitely has magic, so it's going to be one of those things that you're going to get that checkbox will be filled pretty much right off the bat. And as things progress, if things progress past today, magic is very prevalent. It's a thing. People know it exists. It's not something like if you whip out a spell that a creature in the world is going to be like, what the hell was that? They're going to know, oh, they look like a wizard. They're going to screw me over with XYZ spell because I know that magic's a thing. The world that we're going to be living in is kind of forest, ocean crest, like the side of a great body of water, and getting into the woods and paths and stuff like that, just to kind of give you an environment that we're going to be living in during this. And again, things are going to progress in a relatively linear way, unless, of course, you guys decide, you know what? Yes, I could go in this direction, but that also sounds interesting. Let's go that way. Well, then we will go that way. I feel like I'm pretty good at those sort of improvisations, and if chaos is the name of the game, we'll see how good I really am. But yeah, most of what we're doing today is based off the Lost Mine of Phandelver, so there's not going to be much in the realm of what's called homebrew, which is something that I create that's not canon D&D content. So stuff where I'm just like, yeah, that spell is cool, but I made my version and here it is for you. We're going to do things by the book as much as possible, because I don't want this to be, because D&D can be as simple or as complicated as you want it to be. And that goes for me as well. Because as much as, pardon me, as much as these books are, there's a plethora of them, you can take just the player's handbook and be able to play this game. You can take just the starter set, which this is based off of, and play this game. Or you can buy all 50 of the books that exist. It's really up to you. We'll start with the one, though. But yeah, the characters and the stuff that we're going to be doing today is very introductory. We're not doing anything too far out of the box. But as we go through, if you guys have any questions, think of this as like a D&D class that you happen to be teaching with me by halfway through. That you'll be getting involved and making characters and doing stuff on your own. So if there's a spot where you're just like, so you mentioned this, how far can I go with that? And hey, I know you said this, but is this possible? By all means, stop me, because as much as this is my stream and I do like to talk, let's be honest, you all are a part of the stream as well. So I want you to get those questions in, get those comments in. Up next, let's change the slide. I mentioned before, just to give a quick little background of the game itself, that I started actually in college. I tried in high school, and I just couldn't find the right crowd of people, and it just wasn't clicking. And it wasn't until college with the great Kelly, who is in chat. He gave me a chance and was my DM for about a year and a half or so, and we played a regular campaign. It was absolutely amazing. But then I got too involved in theater and too involved in everything else and went and bought a house, and I stopped playing for a while. But then I decided I wanted to try being a dungeon master, and I got my chops up and started working. And there was a show called She Kills Monsters at Eastern Michigan University, where I decided I was going to DM for a handful of students during the tech process. Well, during the rehearsal process. Yeah, Homebrew 3.0, 3.5. I started that, and I realized, oh, I remember loving this. I'm going to keep playing, which is why I kept playing. That campaign that was supposed to last 4 weeks ended up lasting over a year. Then the world kind of went the way it did, so we had to put a little bit of pause on things, but then we got virtual. It's been fun, but now I'm back at it, trying my best to keep going. D&D also kind of had an interesting history in that same regard. And this is kind of the presentation side of it, if you guys were wondering. D&D actually started officially. The first thing was published in 1974, just called simply Dungeons and Dragons. And it's gone through quite a few editions since then. There was the original D&D, or OD&D as they call it, and then Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition. These two are considered the original, like, 1st edition and 2nd edition of the game. And the 2nd edition actually caused some controversy, which I'll go over in a second. But 3.0 and then 3.5, which is where I started playing back in the early 2000s, were kind of where the game got to its heyday. And then right around that time, it got sold to a new company, and they came out with what was called 4th edition, which is almost universally despised as an edition in D&D. They decided to take the concept of Dungeons and Dragons and turn it into a video game on paper. So there was a lot of stuff that they decided, no, we understand it's been the same for 30 years. We're going to change it. And they decided to just go for it. And it did not go well. So in 2014, they came out with 5th edition, which is what we'll be playing today, which is basically taking all the good parts from, yeah, see, 4th edition was trash. Chat said it. Took all the good parts of all the previous versions, a couple of things from 4th edition that were cool, and some new stuff, and made 5th edition. Now, the controversy, which some of you may know, is that J.R.R. Tolkien estate, the guy who wrote The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, all that, his estate actually sued TSR, the company that was publishing Dungeons and Dragons, because they were using words that were specifically stated in The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings and the other books, and said, these words only exist because of us, you need to change it. So they found words that were the same but different, so that way they could keep using it, so that way everybody still had it in their head what they were, but they weren't the trademarked and copyrighted words. But that wasn't the only thing that happened to D&D. In the 80s, parents and teachers and administrators all thought that if you played D&D, you worship Satan, and that it was that simple. Satanic panic. That in the 80s they basically associated D&D with the devil. And it got to the point that there is actually a movie that is loosely based on D&D that's starring Tom Hanks called Mazes and Mysteries, I think. I could look it up, but it's starring Tom Hanks, where he is a player doing a Dungeons and Dragons type game, and he gets possessed, essentially, goes into a tunnel and starts killing people because the game told him to. So basically taking the satanic panic, making it into a movie. Mazes and Monsters. That's
Mazes and Monsters.
Yeah. So that was a thing. Probably not Tom Hanks's best work. But it definitely exists, and he was totally in a propaganda with film, which is hilarious. But since then, it's grown amongst underdogs. It was something that people just said, you know, I know you think that I'm evil or that I'm bad, but I'm having a good time. This is opening and unlocking creativity in me. And there are hundreds, if not thousands, of creative people on movies and TV shows that started their storytelling ability in D&D. The creators of Lost, the creators of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel, Supernatural, X-Files, all of them played D&D when they were younger. And Stranger Things, some of the people in Game of Thrones until it started getting bad. All the people who play or did Lord of the Rings, like all these people started with D&D. But then it grew and celebrities started coming out and saying, hey, I actually played D&D. What is it? John Meneg? He's in frickin' Magic Mike, and he was the original Flash Thompson in the 2002 Spider-Man. But he is known to be this beefy sport jock guy, but he's a huge D&D nerd and has a massive following online. But then there's also podcasts and Twitch streams and stuff, Critical Role, Dungeons and Daddies, all of these platforms that people have just put it out to the forefront. And now Critical Role has a TV show that's coming out, an animated TV show. They have the most successful Twitch stream, I think, ever. I think they're number one almost always. Matthew Lillard. Yes. But again, it has grown exponentially to the point that now, you know, I am a simple Twitch streamer who likes to play Nintendo Switch games and Minecraft. And now I am able to do this. And hopefully, unless somebody jumps in chat later and says anything wrong, not a huge fan of Satan. Like, he's just not at the top of my list of cool dudes. I'm not going to go down into a tunnel somewhere and, you know, the game didn't tell me to kill anyone. Like, you know, I think we can safely assume that Monopoly and Dungeons and Dragons are probably, you know, they can live on the same shelf now.
Capitalism's a little bit worse.
Yeah, well. But yeah, so I just wanted to go over that boring part before we got into the real good stuff of talking about the game itself. So, game mechanics. This is how we actually play the damn thing. So the way that things kind of roll, literally, hey, thank you for the follow, is that, oh, you will definitely have to tell that story later, Jen, is that we play with dice. There is a standard Avatar Monopoly, the best thing. We play with a standard, what's called a 6 set of dice, which includes a D4, a D6, D8, D10, D12, D20. Now, all those numbers and letters relate to D as in dice, and then the number of sides of the dice. So a standard set just includes a D4 through a D20. It is possible to add in what's called a D2 and a D100. And a D100 can be an actual dice that has 100 sides, and it's epic. It looks super cool. If you ever have the opportunity to get one, it's like this big, and it's just got 100 numbers on it. It's legit. Or you can just roll 2 D10s one of which has double digits on it, so that way you can make a percentile that you can add up to 100 with it. And then a D2 is actually something that at first I was like, oh, I need to buy a D2. That's cool. What's it look like? Well, it's a two-sided die, so it's a coin. And this whole time when I first started, I was just like, what's a D2 look like? And yeah, it can be a quarter. It can be, I actually knew somebody that used a token from Chuck E. Cheese as their T2. I thought that was kind of cool. But me personally, I have a little, it's in my little stuff up there of all my physical D&D stuff. I use a tiny little thing that's got a rune on it, like a dwarven rune that I just flip, and one side's 1, one side's 2. So, but that's the basic tools. And then of course a pencil and paper. And I say pencil because a lot of things change. And the first time you write something down doesn't mean that you spelled it right, nor if it's actually going to be important at all. An eraser saves a lot more room than scratching something off with a pen does. So I always recommend a pencil and paper. Because we're virtual, it's not nearly as important, but having one to take quick notes while we're playing is always helpful. Pardon me?
Yeah.
Thank you. Now, the basic structure of play is really 3 main kind of steps. I describe the environment, the situation that you're in. A player describes what they would like to do, and then I narrate back to you how that action succeeds, fails, or otherwise. And that is essentially the basics of the game. Now, when we get into combat, that becomes a little bit more fast-paced and a very stringent order of how things are supposed to happen. But generally, it's, you find yourself in this location. What do you want to do? Well, what do I see, Dungeon Master? You see this. Well, I would like to climb that tree. Do this check for me. I rolled this. You climb the tree. That sort of thing. Sometimes it's not as monotonous as that. Sometimes it's like, oh, you want to jump over that log? You jump over the log. You don't need to roll a check for it. It's just a log. But sometimes, based on the elaborate nature of the game, you have to roll something special for it. But that's the overall structure of how the game can kind of work. Abilities. Everything that you do in D&D is based off of 6 main abilities in some way, shape, or form. There is strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. When you look at the character sheets, if you haven't already, there in the chat, those 6 abilities determine... I love the side chats that's going on. Those 6 abilities spawn off onto almost everything that you can occur, whether it be a check or a save or anything. But the core rule about how those abilities are used is roll plus or minus a bonus or penalty equals a success or failure against DC. Now, a DC is a difficulty class. Everything that you do in the game in some capacity has a difficulty class, which is essentially how hard or simple something is to accomplish, like breaking down a door or jumping over a chasm or hitting somebody with something that doesn't necessarily have armor on. That everything is against some sort of difficulty class. D&D 5th edition actually added a ability called advantage and disadvantage, which allows you to not just roll a single dice to see if you can do it, but you have the opportunity to roll 2 different die. And if you have advantage on that situation, like say you're really good at jumping, you can get to roll 2 dice, and the higher number is the one that actually counts. And disadvantage, it's the lower one that counts. Now, with those sort of ability checks and saving throws and things like that, some examples of how those work is that, say you, like I mentioned, you want to jump over a chasm, a giant hole that's in the ground. If you want to just simply jump over it, I would have you do what's called an athletics check, which is based in the strength ability. So you would roll a die. If there's a modifier in there, when we get in the character sheets, I'll explain where these numbers are. You would then roll, add that number, and I would let you know if it beat the DC or not, and that you successfully jumped over that chasm. Now, if you decided, I want to do a flip over the hole, well, then that would be an acrobatics check. So you would take your acrobatics, which is based off of dexterity, and you would roll a check there. Now, if your character is better at dexterity checks than they are strength checks, then maybe every single time you want to do something, make it acrobatic. Do a flip. Do a cartwheel. Do something fancy so that way it's an acrobatics check so you can always do that. And that sort of
So
stuff.
on these colored sheets, when it's colored and circle, that means it's good?
Yes, if it's a colored in circle, it means you get to add what's called your proficiency bonus. Good segue. So the black circles on the character sheets, which, you know what, we're doing good segues, so I'm going to skip to the next thing.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. The black circles represent proficiency, which means your character, whether it's the race, the class, or otherwise, that you're proficient in it, which means that you're good at it. So if there's a situation that arises that maybe includes one of those, like say you have you're really good at animal handling, and you come across a bunch of horses that are just bucking and running around because they don't have anybody around them, and you want to grab one so that way you can use it as a riding horse, you might be the person that goes up and does the animal handling check to see if you can calm it down and get it settled so you can put a what's the saddle? That's the word. So you can put a saddle on its back and you can actually ride it around. Now, on this PowerPoint, you'll see the D&D character sheet there on the left, but then the D&D Beyond version on the right. And all the same information is there, it's just laid out a little bit differently. And speaking of which, I think this is a perfect time for us to actually go over the individual characters, and I can describe them a little bit for all y'all to see which one really kind of intrigues you. So we have, pull this window over. We have the cleric, the dwarf cleric. Again, none of these people have names or anything like that. Once you accept that you want that character, I'll then there's a D&D Beyond campaign invite link that's on the D&D channel. You click on that link and you can grab one of the characters.
The music just got really loud in my headphones.
It did.
Cool.
Yeah, same.
I went back down. It was just for like a second, like a burst.
I think it's that song. I need to turn that song down in the playlist. But once you decide that one of these is intriguing and some one that you want, you can click on that invite link. All the characters will be available to you, and you can just click the one that you want. Make sense? Cool. So I'll go through a very, very basic description of what these characters are, and then as I progress through the rest of these steps, you can look at the character sheet that you picked while we talk about them. So the cleric. The cleric is a dwarf. Need to make this window bigger. Is a dwarf cleric soldier. You have a military rank from your career as a soldier. Soldiers loyal to your former military organization still recognize your authority and influence, and they defer to you if they are of a lower rank. You can invoke your rank to exert influence over your soldiers and requisition simple equipment or horses or temporary use. You can also usually gain access to friendly military encampments and fortresses where your rank is recognized. Basically, if you walk into anything military or administration, you're kind of hot shit. Now, your alignment is neutral good, which basically means your ideals are not really based in law or the absence of it. You're more in this middle realm of, I will do what's good regardless of what the law is. Some personality traits of this character is, I'm always polite and respectful, Also, I don't trust my gut feelings, so I tend to wait for others to act. Your ideals are respect. People deserve to be treated with dignity and courtesy. Your bonds are, I have 3 cousins, Gundren, Tharden, and Nundro Rockseer, who are my friends and cherished clan members. And your flaws are, I secretly wonder whether the gods care about mortal affairs at all. So that's the basic gist. Again, all these character sheets are available in the D&D channel if you want to click on it and look over it and kind of make your decision. But that's the basics of the cleric. And I worked too fast and my application got mad at me. Hello, welcome in, friend. Welcome to the chaos that is this, whatever this is. Oh, so it looks like, are you just looking over those characters, or did you already pick them? It's fine if you already picked them. I see
I already
both.
picked the elf wizard.
You already did. Okay,
Picked
great.
the halfling, like, right in the beginning.
Well, that was fast. So I guess it's just you at this point, Jen. I'm sorry.
I'll be back momentarily. I have to charge my laptop.
Okay. So that was the cleric. We'll talk about the hero fighter next. They're a human fighter. And you are considered a folk hero. Since you come from the ranks of common folk, you fit in among them with ease. You can find a place to hide, rest, and recuperate among other commoners unless you have shown yourself to be a danger to them. They will shield you from the law or anyone else searching for you, though they will not risk their lives for yours. You're lawful good, so you tend to follow the laws and rules of the land, but at your core, you're a good person. Personality trait, when I set my mind to something, I follow through. Also, I use long words in attempt to sound smarter. Ideals, sincerity. There is no good in pretending to be something I'm not. Bonds. One day, Thunder Tree will be a prosperous town again. A statue of me will stand in the town square. Hello, Jackal. I see you said hi in the chat. And your flaws are, I'm convinced of the significance of my destiny and blind to my shortcomings and the risk of failure. So you think you're more important than you really are, but a lot of other people seem to believe that as well. And another thing when it comes to the fighter, in general, and I'll talk about, so thank you, Jackal. I'll talk about the cleric in a second. I'll go back to that. But the fighter is very good at, they got a great sword, a longbow. They can do long range attacks or up close. They're powerful. They can hit hard. They got a little bit more hit points than others. The fighter itself is just someone that if you're going into battle, they're the one that you want to put towards the front. And then the cleric is the healer. The cleric is the one that you want to protect because they're a little bit more squishy, but at the end of the day, they're the ones who's just like, hey, you got slashed with a sword, I'm going to touch you and now you're good to go. Like, that's what the cleric can do. And then the noble fighter, you'll notice a lot of similarities with this one, but there's a very clear difference. Is that as a noble fighter, thanks to your noble birth, people are inclined to think the best of you. You are welcome in high society, and people assume you have the right to be wherever you are. The common folk make every effort to accommodate you and avoid your displeasure, and other people in high birth treat you as a member of the same social sphere. You can secure an audience with a local noble if you need to. You are lawful neutral, which essentially you follow the rules, but at the end of the day, if good overturns evil, it's not the end of the world.
What it is.
It is what it is. Your personality traits. My flattery makes those I talk to feel wonderful and important. Also, I don't like to get dirty, and I won't be caught dead in unsuitable accommodations. Responsibility is your ideal. It is my duty to respect the authority of those above me, just as below me must respect mine. Your bonds. My great axe is a family heirloom, and it is by far my most precious possession. Precious possession. Say that 5 times fast. And then your flaw is I have a hard time resisting the allure of wealth, especially gold. Wealth can help me restore my legacy. And then again, as a fighter, you have a great axe, but you have javelins, which javelins are actually limited resource. You only have 3 of them. So if you toss it somewhere and you can't get to it, or you toss it at something and it might break, you lose that javelin forever. But it's a pretty powerful weapon if you can hit them. So, but those are the 3 options because apparently Becca and Cora have already picked theirs. Do either of those entice you, Jen?
I'm kind of leaning towards the cleric.
Okay.
I think. So.
Excellent.
From the
sounds
little
good.
I've heard about you, that checks out.
No, that's great. So that means we got somebody who's sneaky, the rogue. And again, once we get into the game, the actual playing side of it, there will be an opportunity for you to introduce yourself with your new name, describe what you're wearing and what you look like, and then a little bit about yourself, so that way we can get kind of a handle on what's going on. So yeah, Jen, if you want to click on that link and you can actually grab that character. And also, huge hermit. All of these players are brand new. So we're, unless you meant net new. But again, we're doing this. This is not only a stream for us to play, but it's also a stream for us to learn. So this is something that not only is this for the players here, but it might be for others to watch later. So that's why there's so much info. But thank you for your comment. I appreciate that. Are you good to go, Jen? I think you said yes.
I'm having like a hard time. It's not showing me the character.
Okay. Do you have a D&D Beyond account?
No.
Ah, okay. You'll
Okay,
have to
that's
have an
the
account.
issue.
Is there people just meditating in our ears right now?
Yes.
Okay. I was just making sure.
Yeah. No, it's you know, if you're going for a mood, that's a mood. Luckily for D&D Beyond, you can just use your Twitch login, so it should be quick and easy to create that account. But then you should be able to select a player.
Don't click on sign up though. Click in sign in. If you're going to use your Twitch account. I clicked on sign up and it didn't pop up. The wizard finally popped up on mine. Yay.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah, the wizard, for those who don't know. And again, once things get up and running, everyone who is in the chat sphere, I have the D&D Beyond overlay set up. So if you want to, you can actually look at all these character sheets after we're all done and watch their hit points and what damage they have, what inventory is, all that great stuff, and you can see that happen.
I think you got a compliment in the stream.
I did? Oh, you like my voice? Well, thank you.
Oh God.
Well, and again, I wanted to make sure that this, because this is my first official like new way of doing D&D, because I did do it way back when, but it was just basically I captured the Discord screen and said this'll do. that I'm doing this in another format. So I appreciate that you like the process. Yes, what Alyssa said about that overlay. Okay, so you created the account. Did you grab the character?
Yep.
Awesome. Let me double check. Just because my app is being picky.
I see the cleric on mine. I just refreshed it.
Perfect. Okay. Awesome. So you all have your characters. That is fantastic. Awesome. Okay, so now that we have that, let's jump back to the PowerPoint because I am a nerdy weirdo. Now that you have your character sheets, let's go over a little bit about what we see here. And since you're all looking at D&D Beyond at this point, right? Cool. So on D&D Beyond, across the top of the screen, unless you're looking at your phone, it's a little bit more condensed. You'll see all of your abilities. You see strength, you see dexterity, charisma, wisdom, all those fancy ones. And
We click on our character. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, if you open up your character.
Sorry. Misstep.
It's okay.
Got it.
But you'll see all the abilities themselves with a big plus number or a minus number for different abilities themselves. Becca, you have confused face.
I'm just looking and confused at what the words say. Keep explaining though. Sorry. I'm not confused at what you're saying. I'm just confused at what I'm looking at.
Okay. So across those 6 boxes, you'll see your actual ability number, which is I think there's like 16, 15, 12, 8, all those numbers. And then there's a plus or minus number, a bigger number in the actual thing. Those are called modifiers. So what those do is when you do specific rolls, I'll ask you to use that modifier or use your ability modifier, your skill modifiers, which are those other ones that are in that big long list underneath those 6 boxes. So I wish I could actually... Oh, I can. Can you see my mouse on the screen in Discord?
It's lagging, so I can't tell you.
Cool, great.
Yes.
Okay, so right across here is your ability scores. And then your skills are down this way. And all those plus and minus numbers are the modifiers that you will use when I ask you to do a specific roll. So that jumping across a chasm, and you do an acrobatics roll. You'll roll a d20, you'll add your acrobatics number, and then I'll let you know if you make it across the chasm or not. And that's kind of how the character sheet is broken out. That I'll ask you for information that's on your sheet, or that you ask me, hey, I'm trying to do this, and then I'll tell you on what part of your character sheet you need to look at to see if you can do that or not. Now, all the other information that's on here, especially this big area right here, this big square where it's got the, actions, spells, equipment, all that sort of stuff in those individual tabs. That's just extra information that once we start rolling along, you can utilize that information to better prepare yourself for what might be coming next. Or if we're in the middle of combat and you realize, hey, I'm a lot further away than I thought I was, I'm going to make sure that I have something that I can use from the distance. And you have that information. And while I'm going through a lot of this stuff, feel free to be digging through and looking through some of this information. And again, stop me with questions, because I don't want you to get into the middle of what we're doing later on and that something is surprising you or that you're just confused about something. The better we can be on the same page, the better. I said that backwards. Anyway, and another section that is worth noticing is that you see your initiative modifier, your AC or your armor class, and your hit points, which is this long rectangle along the top right. That is when I say, this creature hit you with a sword and you take X amount of damage, that you can, on this sheet, keep track of how many hit points you have left until you're dead. Well, until you're unconscious, which we'll go over in a second how that works. But more importantly, besides all of this description of how this character sheet works, I think what we need to go over is I want you all, the PDFs that I posted in the D&D channel, they have some a little bit more information on the second page that relates to your class and your race and cool stuff about your character as a whole that could be useful. And the thing that I want you all to kind of mull over and try to figure out is what your character might be named. It can be something simple. It doesn't have to be something that's rooted in lore. It doesn't have to be anything accurate to the race or class of that character. It can just be a cool name that you like. It can be your pet's name. It can be your name. There's nothing stopping you from what you want to do. And then from there, do a quick search on the interwebs. If you can't find anything, that's perfectly fine. But look up something that might be what this character could look like. And then if you find that image, drop it in Discord, so that way I can grab it and I can add it to the map and we can utilize it from that point on. But there is also an upload button for the photo in D&D Beyond, so you can add it there as well. So that way you can have a full encompassing what that character looks like. And once you have that image, you can actually enter in that information in the character sheet about what eye color they have, hair color, how much do they weigh, how old are they, all that sort of stuff. Again, most of this is not really going to impair in any way us getting started, but the more that you can do on the character sheet to make it yours, the more it'll be, or the faster and easier it should be for you to relate to that character when it comes to actions they might do. And then the last one is spells. As a cleric and as a wizard, you both get spells. There are some things which we'll go over a little bit more in chapter 5 of the presentation today, so don't worry about them right now. But you can look through the list of spells that are available to you if you so choose, but we'll go over them in a bit more detail. But you do get a couple spells at level 1. Thank you for the lurk. A couple spells at level 1 that you can actually utilize for the future. So definitely keep that in mind as we progress forward. But while I'm going over this next stuff, just look over some things and kind of explore a bit. See if you can't find a picture that really speaks to you about this character. Find a name. Make those changes on that character sheet. And to make those changes, for those who haven't touched D&D Beyond, there's the little anvil that's to the top right of your character sheet, and that gets you into the edit information for that character sheet. Cool? I know there's probably a lot of other information on that sheet that's got a huge question marks in your brain. Hopefully we'll go over a good chunk of it for the rest of today, so that way you can kind of understand a bit more. And if I say something, you go, is that what this is? Definitely stop me, so that way we can explain it a little bit better. Good? Cool. And I swear we'll get playing soon. Again, I want to make sure that you have as much information as possible without overwhelming you. So, another thing that's awesome about this, the map software that I have, once we get to the point that we actually bring up the map and you can all see it, is that if you tap on any of the modifier numbers, the attack number, the initiative number, anything on your character sheet, you'll actually roll a dice on the screen. And that number will track over to my app. So that way my app knows if you succeeded or failed or did any of the things that I asked without ever having to pick up a physical dice. That you can just do it on the screen, which I think is pretty cool. So, next. Combat. I know we went character sheet, combat, but I do want to talk about how combat works, so that way as you look at the action section and the spell section of your character sheet, you understand what those numbers mean and what those numbers can do. So the order of combat is essentially right up at the top. When combat starts, we determine if anyone is surprised. If you all sneak up on a pack of kobolds and they don't see you coming, well, then they're all in surprise, which means we don't have to roll initiative until you all have done your actions, because the kobolds had no chance for that first round. But then after that point, you roll what's called initiative. Initiative determines what order everyone is going to go in, because D&D is turn-based. It's not everyone talks and says, well, they're doing this, I'm going to slash, and then I'm going to pull out my bow, and I'm going to... We all take turns. We go person after person and creature after creature until we get through a full round of everybody, and we do that as many times until combat ends, whether all the NPC, the non-playable characters, the ones that I control, whether they're all dead or you're all dead. Or the middle ground, which is that the fighting stops because of some other reason. Now, after initiative is set and we go through those processes, the basic layout of how your player turn works, and I actually uploaded a PDF in the D&D channel of a basic overview of how combat, like your turn as a player, works in combat. It's a flow chart, so that way you can kind of process through, well, I think I want to do something like this, and then it gives you a list of potential things that you could do. But my personal preference, especially since you guys are new, use that as a reference, but just act on what you think your character would do. You're just like, I think my character would go straight in with the sword and try to hit them in the neck. And then I'll say, okay, you'll have to move 10 feet to do that. You'll have to make this action of slashing them, and then you still have a bonus action to actually do something else. But the basic layout is that you have a move action, which you can use at any point in your turn. You don't necessarily have to do a move and then an action and then you're done. You can move, action, move after, and then do your bonus action, any order. But you have a move action, or a move, an action, a bonus action, and then there's various other activities like yelling across the field or picking something off the ground or something like that that doesn't fit into those categories. So it's just one of those things of like, and then I flip the bird to the goblin in the corner. That doesn't fit in any of those categories. So as a DM, I would just be like, great, you flip him off and he gives you an evil look. And it was a part of your turn. Now, reactions are something that allows you to do something when it's not necessarily your turn, that you either set up in advance or something that happens because some other character or creature did something. An attack of opportunity is when a character who's standing right next to you leaves your space. When they leave your space, as a character, you get the opportunity to hit them as they walk away. Which is kind of... What?
I said smack.
Yes, exactly. It's kind of a dirty move, but in D&D, it's legit. So after you make those sort of reactions, we go through the process order after order. But during this, there may be something that comes up called a condition, which certain spells have conditions, certain activities that may happen have conditions that just impede what you're doing in some capacity. Like if you get knocked down on the ground, or somebody grabs hold of you, or someone throws you up in the sky, or they use a spell that blinds you temporarily, that these conditions can occur. And as those conditions arise, I'll explain them. So if any of them happen during combat, I'll say, this person does this, you're knocked on the ground, you're considered this is what you have to do to get out of that condition. So we'll go over it as it comes up, because not all of them will tonight, and I don't want to talk about the 15 layers of conditions when we're only going to see 3 of them today. So next, a little bit more of a breakdown of how the combat actually happens for your turn is that there's movement and position. Movement, you don't necessarily, like I said, have to do it right up front. You don't have to use all of your movement speed, which you'll see on your character sheet. It says movement speed 25 feet, movement speed 30 feet. It means during your turn, you can move that many feet, which each square on the map is 5 feet. So you basically do the math of how many squares you've moved so you know how far you can actually go. But you don't necessarily have to do that all up front. Yes, what's up?
Okay, sorry. Can you explain that one more time? Mine says like 12. No, 30. Hold on. 30. Mine says 30 walking.
So
Yeah.
that means that you can move a total of 6 squares on a map. So 1 square on a map equals 5 feet. Taking notes.
Will make sense.
I love it.
It will make more sense when you look at the map.
If I have to do math, it won't make sense.
Well, luckily on the map, if the character moves, it actually tells you how many feet that you've moved.
Sick.
Right? I know.
Okay, thank you.
So, again, you don't necessarily have to use all 30 feet before you do an action. You can move 15 feet, do the action, and then move another 15 feet if you want, or any combination. Difficult terrain, just to mention it, I don't think it's going to be a factor. Difficult terrain is that your movement may be impeded because the terrain that you're walking on is hard to get through, like a swamp or a thicket of bushes or uneven cliff face that you might be sliding down. Something that's harder to move on will affect how fast you can actually move. Now, being knocked prone means that if you get knocked down on the ground, you have to use half of your movement speed to actually stand back up. So that way, if you get knocked down and you have 30 feet of movement, well, if you stand back up, you can only move another 15 during your turn. And then another thing is moving around other creatures. Dropping all these biddies, Cora. Movement around another creature. As a player, if you're moving around a non-playable character, someone who's not in the party, a non-friendly character, you have to physically go around them on a map. So you have to take the squares into account to go around them. But if it's a player character and someone who's nice, you can actually move through their square to get where you need to go. So again,
what if you grab them? And can you go through their square?
If you grab them?
Like if you go into combat with them.
Yeah, if you go into combat with them, you can get right up in their business. But if you're attacking them, you have to be in your own square. If you're getting in their business and grabbing them, you can be in their square too. But then that would be another action to grab them, if that makes sense.
Got it.
Now, the actions themselves, after you've figured out movement, but the actual actions, what you can do while you're in your turn, is that you can attack or cast a spell. You can dash, which means you take your action to do another movement. So say your movement is 30 feet and you use dash. Now you can move an extra 30 feet. So say you're trying to run away from something. You can disengage, which is a fancy way of saying I put my weapons away. So that way, hopefully you can stop a battle that might happen, especially if it's up against something that you don't think you can take on. You can use dodge, which dodge usually is a reaction. So if somebody does something, you can use dodge to get away from it. Not all the time, but sometimes. You can call for help. That could be an action. Depending on what you're doing, you can help someone also. You can choose to hide. You can ready something, so you can actually take your action to ready, like, I want to be prepared in case this happens, and that's what I'm going to do my round. You could take your turn to search, especially if something drops. Somebody drops, like, say, a necklace, and you want to find it during your turn. You can do that during your action. Or you can use an object. Like, say somebody gave you an amulet that's got a power on it. You can use that object in some capacity. Whether that's using it on yourself or tossing it to somebody, something like that. Hold on a moment. Getting a lot of messages on Discord, and I'm trying to figure out why.
Because we're following directions.
I'm so proud of you. Oh, look at that. Ooh. Very, very nice, Becca.
Thank you.
Okay. So that is the basic actions that you can do. So next, when you make that attack, the actual attack part of combat, the process is that you choose a target, you determine the modifiers of that action. So if it's advantage, disadvantage, if it's just a straight D20 with, like you'll notice in the actions tab of your player character sheet, it should say attack, and down that row it says like +4 or +2 or something like that under the attack category, and then next to it says damage, or it says like 1d6 +4 or 1d3 +2 or d4 +2, something like that. So those are all the modifiers you have to figure out. And then
So like mine says short sword +5, and then 1d6 +3.
Correct. So when you roll a d20
Cool.
for attack, you roll the d20, whatever the result is, you add 5. And if you do it with your character sheet, it'll do the math for you. And then I'll let you know if it actually hit the character so you can roll damage. Then you tell me what the damage is, and then I can tell you if it just wounded the character or the NPC or if it killed it.
Oh.
Now, natural 1s and natural 20s. When you roll this die, there's a chance that you roll a 1. There's also a chance that you'll roll a whole 20. Last night when I was doing testing, I rolled a natural 1, which was such a... It's an omen I'm going to forget about. But a natural 1 doesn't necessarily mean it's an absolute failure and a guaranteed failure. All the natural 1 means is that something else might happen aside from failing. That if you're using an arrow and you try to shoot and you roll a natural 1, the arrow might break so you can't go pick it up. That sort of thing. But if you do a 20, the opposite is also true. So if you roll a natural 20...
So does everyone have, like, little caveats on their character sheets? So, like, rolls and stuff?
What do you mean, like pluses and
mine
minuses?
Mine says lucky. When you roll a natural 1 on an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, you can re-roll the die and must use the new roll.
Some people have those sort of like class proficiencies and class abilities. I think not everybody has luck. I think that is purely a rogue thing. So I think you're the only one that has that. But if a fighter goes, I think level 2 you get what's called second wind, which means you can do a second attack during your action. So it's one of those, like, as you level up as a certain class, you get certain buffs. Now, that being said, as we progress, there's halflings have lucky. Oh, maybe it is because it is a halfling rogue. That's a good point, Captain Jupiter. Also, hi. Lucky I think is actually a halfling thing. I don't think it's a rogue thing.
The rogue thing is all my crime stuff.
Yes, all your crime stuff, exactly.
Can I ask what Arcana means?
Arcana is a really good show on Netflix. No, and it's not. That's not what the show's called anyway, so I'm completely wrong. But Arcana is actually just knowledge of magic. So it's your way of, like, I'm trying to figure out what this, why this magical door is doing what it's doing. I'll have you roll an Arcana check, so that way you can be like, oh, it's being held closed because of, this, you see that the magic is focused around this area, and you think back and you realize that, oh, in my teachings as a wizard, the teacher of mine told me that I might run into stuff like this, and then I can tell you that you learned that. Even though as a player and as a character, you might not know it yet, I as a DM can give you that information because you rolled properly.
I see.
I have another question about our character sheet.
Sure
The
thing.
equipment box, is that what we have on us, like, all the time?
Correct.
Does it get used up? Like, should we keep track of it?
No, that's actually something. It's not for a little bit. It's during the adventuring section. But I don't believe in encumbrance unless it comes to something that's absolutely massive, like we're gonna carry a horse back to town.
Damn.
I know. But I'm the sort of person that's just like, as long as you're not doing something obnoxious, I don't think it should count against how much you can carry, because that
I was
starts
just
to
asking, because everything is, like, weighted.
because that can get really, really obnoxious, and then you have to pick and choose what you keep on you, and that can be a really hard conversation, and I don't want to have that talk. Ooh, thank you, Cora. I haven't had actual hydration in a while. It's just been coffee. Thank you. Now, when it comes to unseen attackers, like say we start a battle and you see an arrow come from the trees, but you have no idea where it came from, well, there's certain things, or say that you're in the trees shooting an arrow, and the things that you're shooting at can't see you, then there's the ability to do what's called cover and hiding, that if someone's hiding, they have disadvantage. Like the person who can't see you has disadvantage of anything that they do towards you. And the opposite is also true, that they will have you will have disadvantage if you can't see what you're trying to attack. And that just means you roll 2 d20s, you take the lower number, and that's your roll. Ranged attacks and melee attacks, just to go over that. Ranged attacks from a distance, they have specific things, like I think the short bow, the javelin, the crossbow, and a couple of the ranged attacks actually say how far they can actually do something. But the range has how far they can do something good and how far they can do something with less accuracy. So it'll say like 60/120. And that's what that means. And a melee attack is up close. Now, if you do a ranged attack up close, it also has some negative effects to it. So if you try to use a bow and you're like right in front of someone, the accuracy might not be as good. But again, something that if you want to try it, I'll let you know what you need to roll so we can see if it happens. Now, we went over attacks of opportunity, so I won't worry about that. But 2 weapon fighting, if this kind of progresses, is something that, can be very, very helpful, especially when you're a fighter, because it allows you to not only have the one weapon that you're doing, but you can also have another one in the other hand. Like if you have 2 hand axes and you're just going to town as you fight. Or if you have 2 short swords because you're feeling fancy. Or 2 daggers if you're a rogue and you want to stabby. Those sort of options are available as you progress through your character and once you level up. How are we doing on names, pictures, and stuff like that? You all still looking? I see Becca, you're good to
Two
go.
of them are in there.
Okay.
So if we come back to this campaign, will all of this be saved under our characters?
Yep, 100%.
Hell yeah.
Isn't that nice? Cool. So, the end-all be-all of combat is damage and healing when it's all, all done with. So healing much more on the sake of our cleric than anything. But the damage side of it is that your hope is that you damage something to the point that they get down to 0, or hoping that they don't damage you enough to get you to 0. So you have a set number of hit points, which in some ways, leveling up in other ways, you can actually have those hit points change, which is fantastic. So you're not always going to be sitting at 10 hit points or 12 hit points or 8 hit points. You're going to go up as you progress, because 8 and 10 hit points, not a lot. But some of my campaigns that I run, they're upwards of 40, 50 hit points at this point, which quite a bit. Awesome. But the battles they're going into definitely take more hit points off of them if they get hit. So there's a balance there. The damage rolls I mentioned before, it can be a D6, a D4, a D8, depending on what the item is. And there's also a bunch of different types of damage. There's fire damage, there's bludgeoning damage, there's piercing damage, and depending on the tool that you have, the weapon that you're using, it's a different type of damage. And depending on the enemy that you're fighting, again, all of this is conditional. That once we get fighting, if you do something, I'll tell you if it's effective or not. So that way you don't have to be surprised. Like, I'm trying to slash the water and it's not doing anything. I'll tell you why. So that way you know as a character and as a player why it's not doing what you wanted it to. I absolutely love that character avatar, Jen. That's awesome. I'm excited. Okay. Resistance and vulnerabilities is also something worth paying attention to. You'll notice that on your sheets, you should have something that states resistances or vulnerabilities to specific types of damage. Like some of them say resistant to poison or vulnerable to bludgeoning damage. It should be on your character sheet underneath your saving throws, I believe. In the little tiny rectangle on the top left. If not, again, we'll figure it out, because I'll be able to look at your sheets when you're done, so that way we can look at it together.
Wait, I'm sorry, mine was loading. What are we looking at?
Resistances and vulnerabilities. So there should be something that says resistant to charming or resistant to poison damage or something like that. It should be at the top left. It's a tiny little black text on your character sheet.
It's under where it says defenses.
I think so.
Mine says no resistance, immunities, or vulnerabilities.
Okay, there you go. Then you're just down the middle of the road, good to go.
Am I gonna die immediately?
You shouldn't.
I have one thing that says that nobody can make me sleep.
That's good to see. That is technically a resistance.
Okay.
It's a resistance against a condition.
Advantage against being charmed and magic can't put you to sleep. Yep. Why is that not in the defenses?
Oh, because that you have advantage on those rolls. That's what that A means. So if somebody tries to put you to sleep, if somebody tries to charm you, you can roll a dice for your saving throw, because those sort of things you have to roll as a character. If someone tries to do it to you, you can roll 2 dice, and the higher number is the one that you take for that check. So yeah, and again, once we get into things, I think things will start to fall into place. A lot of this, it's a lot of information all at once, and I know that. But I'm trying to make sure that we have a baseline, so that way when we do jump into things, you have a reference point, so that way we can jump back and forth after that.
Yeah.
I figured out why I couldn't find mine. I don't have any.
You don't have any what?
Same.
I don't.
Oh,
I have no resistances, no immunities, or no vulnerabilities, so.
Good job, Halfling Rogue. Just stay in the shadows, you'll be fine. Cool. So then we have dropping to 0 hit points, as I mentioned before. So there's a handful of things that can happen when you drop down to 0. An instant death can occur, which is very sad, but it can happen. And how that happens is if you hold on, sorry. I got a little message on the side that I need to read. is if you get knocked to the ground and the damage that is applied to you is more than half of your total hit points. So say you're at 12. Thank you, Cora. Say you're at 12 hit points total and something hits you and you get to -6 hit points or lower, it's an instant death based on the damage of what hits you. Otherwise, if that doesn't happen, you fall unconscious and you're just laying there on the ground until somebody can stabilize you or bring you back, which can happen with cure wounds or a potion or something like that. Otherwise, you just fall unconscious and then you move, you just sit there until the end of combat.
Oh, it's like freeze tag.
Kind of. You can't really do anything. You don't know what's going on around you. So, but while you're laying unconscious, if combat's still going, you do what's called a death saving throw. And what that entails is that you do best 3 out of 7, technically, of death saving throws. So you have to roll a d20, and if you succeed, it's a save. If you fail, it's considered a point towards death. So if you get 3 points of save, you stabilize and get back to 1 hit point. If you roll 3 failures, it means that your character has then died. You can be revived. There are abilities to do that, so it's not necessarily the end of the world. But it is one of those things that while the combat is going, there is a chance for you to still roll for something, so that way you aren't necessarily down for the count and out for the rest of the fight. And if you critical... Chaotic good. I love it. If you get a critical fail or a critical success, so a nat 1 or a nat 20, it counts as 2 points in that category. Hey, welcome in. Thank you for the follow. So yeah. Now, there is also the opportunity for you to knock out a creature. So if you notice that that creature is getting very, very close to death, but not quite there, you do have the opportunity to, pardon me, you do have the opportunity to say, smack it on the head and make it go unconscious so that way you can grab it later. Oh, thanks. Yay, somebody in chat likes the way I'm doing things. So that is something that is totally possible. Like, say you want to interrogate one of the NPCs, that you just knock it over the head and you actively tell me, I want to try to knock this character out. Then I can have you roll, you smack it, we'll see if it happens. That sort of thing. So it's totally possible you do. You don't always have to go in there to kill everything. You don't have to be murder hobos. You can actually, be closer to like investigators and try to find the information out from your captors and stuff like that. All totally possible.
Murder hobos, I like that.
It is a very standard way that people play this game. They don't have a home, they just do things for coin, and they kill everything that they're told to. Murder hobos. So, taking a step back for a second just to talk. How are you all on your characters? I know the spells we haven't really got to yet, but you're good with your photo, good with your name, kind of filled in some of your descriptions of how they look, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Awesome. That is exactly what I needed to hear. Thank you. So any questions generally about combat so far before we actually get into it? Cool. That sounds great to me. I do need to update something that I totally didn't do at the beginning of the stream, and I feel big dumb about it, so hold on a second. So for those watching stream, the pictures of people are going to cycle through real quick just because I'm testing something. Potentially. Oh, I really hope I didn't lose Becca.
She said she'll be right back.
Oh, okay, cool. So that works out. Yeah, I'm just doing a cycle real quick of that video to see if this change does anything to help. Cool. Oh, so apparently the my Discord chat is not happy about me sharing my screen right now, which is too bad because I'm not about to not have you all look at my glorious PowerPoint. Okay. So they're all cycle back through for anyone who's wondering where they disappeared to. So, you can all still see me, right? Cora and Jen. Okay, cool. That was the first thing that died last time was my camera, so I'm glad that that's not an issue now. So great. So if we are past the point of combat, I think it's time to start talking about the next big thing that you can do in D&D, which is adventuring. It's the other half of D&D. You're fighting stuff and then you're just walking around. It's the shopping episode. It's the whatever else you're thinking of doing in D&D. It's the part of the process that is essentially anything but the combat side. So the biggest part is traveling, like I mentioned before. It's the getting from point A to point B. Video's disappeared. Hold on a moment.
It can be a green box if you want me to.
No, I'd rather you not. Okay, so one of the main things about travel is marching order, which when we get into the combat side of things, it's going to be the first thing that I ask of you is, what's your marching order? Who is in front of who? Who is in front of who? And that's on purpose because we need to know, who's carrying the wagon, who's up front, who's protecting the rear, who's doing what, because when things start, especially combat, it's very important in regards to initiative and what people can see as things progress. So, there's also special forms of movement. I think I totally lost your videos. That's great.
Dun dun dun. He has Becca's.
We do have Becca's. Let me try this one more time. Regardless of that, let's carry on real quick. The special forms of movement are long jump, high jump, climbing, swimming, various things that may occur. And then there's resting. Long rests in earlier levels actually restore all your hit points, which is fantastic. And a short rest actually allows you to kind of cure your own wounds a little bit. Roll a die to see how many hit points you get back before you carry forward. So if we get to that point, we can go over that in more detail. And then finally, with this, there's rewards and milestones. As you do stuff, you will be rewarded in some capacity, whether it's with experience points or milestones. I run my campaigns with milestones, which means you accomplish a big task, you get rewarded for it. Not with points, but with levels or with inspiration or something like that, which we can go over in a little bit. But that's kind of how things progress as they go forward.
We lost Jen's box entirely now.
We're doing great here. Hold on a moment, everyone out there. We're just trying to get this squared away. course, now, when we're way into the thick of it, is when it decides to start failing.
To the thick of it?
Exactly.
I mean, do we need to necessarily be on video if they can hear us at least?
For right now, we'll just hope that it all comes back, and I'll just continue forward. Okay, so the rest of the stuff with adventuring is just equipment based. I mentioned encumbrance. I don't worry about it. You carry what you carry. I'll let you know if anything changes. Armor and shields. I think all of you have some form of armor on you, whether it's leather or chainmail or otherwise. That just improves your AC or your armor class. So that way, when something tries to hit you, it's a higher number, so it's harder to hit you. Your weapons. You have various weapons already. Some of which you are proficient in, which it will add your proficiency modifier to it. There's also certain properties to your weapons that are important, namely the slashing ability, and if there's anything else that weapon can do that doesn't necessarily involve standard damage, that it might be something additional to it. And then improvised weapons, like say you're at a bar, you smash a bottle on the stool, and then you bring it up to somebody and try to slash them on the face. That's an improvised weapon. We can figure out how much damage that's going to do at the time. And then miscellaneous gear and services. There are various opportunities where we might run into a spot where there's something else that you have that's not a weapon or an armor or shield that might be useful. Rope, any magic items, backpacks, sleeping bags, a water skin, food and drink and lodging that you might run into, and then horses that you might want to rent so that way you can ride on them and be a little bit easier to get from point A to point B as opposed to just walking. All those things are available.
I don't think I have any gear that will protect me. I have common clothes and a pope robe. And then a sword, a spell book, and a holy symbol. Is there a way I can get that in the future?
In the future, yes, 100%.
Okay. Because I am walking around with 8 points and no protection whatsoever.
Cool. Yep. That's a squishy wizard for you.
But I can do magic.
You can do magic. So, speaking of magic, good segue. Spell casting.
We have Becca and Jen on stream.
But not
Either
Cora.
face. That's okay.
Cora is just the purple wood background.
I do not need to be perceived.
So what is a spell? Well, it's the magic shit. Oh, there's Cora. Now you're on stream.
Yay.
When it comes to... Actually, now that I see this is happening, I'm going to do this real quick just to kind of help out the process. Nobody out there can see this, but I'm updating my stream so that way it's not using as much resources in Discord, so that should help things out. Okay, so spell level. There are different levels that you can cast at specific spells. Cantrips are ones that you can use anytime. Level 1, you have specific slots that you can cast those things. And once you start getting to higher levels, see abjuration spells, mage armor, shield stuff for protection. So that stuff can actually add protection to you if you cast the spell on yourself. But those spell levels, the higher they go, you can actually cast those spells at higher levels, and they might have different abilities based on that spell level, which is super cool. There's also known and prepared spells. Known spells are ones you already have. Prepared spells, as a wizard, you have a spell book, and you have to, at the beginning of each day, actually pick which spells that you are going to use that day. So if you know that you're going to go into a specific battle, maybe on a ship, well, prepare spells that will be helpful on the water. So that way you know that is that. And if you don't know what you're doing, generic type spells. Then there's also ritual type spells. Those ones take upwards of 10 minutes sometimes. Those are the ones that can bring people back to life. Those are the ones where you can talk with someone who has just passed and get their final thoughts on what happened to get more information out of them. Their seeing spells, if you want to see into the distance or through the eyes of an animal, druids and stuff have specific spells that allow you to do those sort of things. And they take a significant period of time, something you can't do in combat that's only done during adventuring, like the in-between stuff. To cast a spell, if it's during a action, during combat, during your turn, you can do it during actions. Some of them you can actually do during bonus actions. It will actually tell you if you can, which means that you can do an attack spell and then do a different spell in the bonus action slot, so that way you can do two things during your turn, which can be very, very helpful, especially based on some of the cantrips that some of these characters have. You'll actually have the ability to do two things during combat, which can be very helpful. And then some of them, like I mentioned, rituals, they take a lot longer than that, so you can't do them during combat, or it's just not possible to do them at all yet because they take too long and you don't have that time. Some of them are range spells, which means some of them you have to touch someone. Others it's 30 feet that it can reach, and anybody affected in that 30 feet. And others are, you can cast it up to 60 feet, and then there's a chunk of space outside of that 30 feet that actually affects that spell. And my map software actually has a nice little area of effect bubble that I can lay on and be like, oh, your spell does this much damage to these people, which is super cool. Components, there's verbal, somatic, and material. So verbal, you have to say something. So if there's a condition on you that doesn't allow you to talk, you can't cast that spell. Somatic requires you to move and do things. So if you're paralyzed, you can't cast that spell. And then material is you need a physical object to be able to do that spell. Sometimes, specifically the bigger ritual spells, they require like a diamond or something for you to use in the spell to actually cast it. So that can get kind of expensive, but the spells that usually require materials are the ones that are the really, really big, nice spells. The duration is how long the spell lasts. Sometimes it's quick and easy, and others require concentration, which means you have to pay attention to that spell multiple rounds of combat or for an extended period of time, or that spell will drop. And if we get to a point where we're using the spell like that, I'll explain the process. But that just means that you might be limited in what you can do because you're concentrating on that spell. And then finally, targets. Usually you have to have a clear path. If someone's hiding, someone's behind something, you might have certain modifiers that need to be added or subtracted based on what you're trying to do. And you can always cast it on yourself. So again, with the mage armor and stuff like that to protect yourself, or prestidigitation, which allows you to kind of like, we just jumped in water, I'm sopping wet, let me cast prestidigitation and dry all of you off, and just poof, and you're dry. That sort of spell can happen. And then finally, with the spellcasting section, the areas of effect, as I mentioned, there's cone, cube, line, and sphere. So different spells have different areas of effect that they can interact with. And depending on the spell, as we get into combat, I'll actually jump in and tell you, oh, this is a cone spell, and it will point in this direction. Tell me which way. Okay, it affects this person and this person because of its range, and I can show that to you. So when we get into that, I'll do that. There's also saving throw spells, which means you cast it automatically. It just happens. And then the creature you're casting it on has to do a saving throw to see if they get hit by it, or if they get not as affected, or if it completely misses them. So depending on the roll that they do. And sometimes you have to do a spell just like a normal attack, where you roll your dice to see if you actually hit that person with that spell. You can also combine some of these magical effects, which again, when we get in the battle, I'll go over a little bit more. And then spell list. This is finally the spot of your character sheets that you may not have filled out yet. That each of you has a spell list specific to your class. And by each of you, I mean Jen and Becca. That allows you to pick specific spells for your first level spells, which I believe you should only have like 1 to 3 first level spells that you can choose. But on your character sheet, you go to the spells tab, and then it should say manage spells, and then a tab that says add spells. And then you should be able to go through that list, which is the only spells that your class can learn. And you pick from that list a spell that kind of fits what mood you're going for. Read the description, see which ones you like. And again, we're going to have a second in between this point and when we actually are going to do a little bit of an encounter together. That we're going to have a little bit of time in between there where I'm trying to sync characters up so that way you're all ready to get put on the maps and you're getting the maps open. So you're going to have some time to pick spells if you already haven't. But level 1 spells are pretty limited for characters. There's not much that you can pick from as level 1, but it does expand from there. So definitely take some time to look those things over. But yeah, so take that moment to do so. Any general questions about spells, specific spells we can go over in a second, but just spell casting in general, how that process works. Any questions that kind of pop up?
I think I'll probably have more once I have to do it for the first time.
Which, if we're being completely honest, a lot of D&D is trial by fire. That I can tell you as much as I can up front, but once we start playing, that's when it's going to matter. So that's when you're going to go, oh, that's what Dustin's been talking about for 2 hours. Which, thank you for holding out for 2 hours. A good chunk of this stream, like I mentioned up top, is for the presentation side of it, so that way I can cut this together and get it out on other platforms and potentially teach others. So thank you for being my guinea pigs through this. It will be simpler later. But for the time being, this is the presentation that I have, so that way I can build and grow from here. So thank you all so much for that. And speaking of which, any final questions about the presentation itself? Because we're going to jump into it as soon as we're all good to go.
Let's do it.
Okay. Now, not to be a tease, but it has been 2 hours, so I do think it's a good... Thank you for that message, Becca. It has been a good chunk of time, so I would like to give all of us a quick 5-minute break to use the restroom, maybe grab any snacks that we might. I know that some of you walked away already, so that's fine, but I haven't been able to yet, so I'm going to take a quick break. While that's happening, if you want to keep digging into spell lists and figure those things out, so that way when I get back, I'll get things loaded over. We'll get the map loaded up so you can all see it, and we can do a quick little combat example, and exploration and adventuring example to kind of get your feet wet in how this process works. Sound good? Awesome. Then I will see you all in about 5 minutes. So come back here at around 8:15.
Thank you, 5.
See you in a
it's
bit, friends.
habit.
I face. Just hold on to this warm embrace. Looking out, side by side, we'll stay. Seasons change, still our love remains. Lock in your love. Lock in your love. Lock in your love.
Okay, I am back.
Sorry.
Nope, no worries. I'm trying to get things kind of squared away on my end a little bit still. Close that. Cool. As much as I'm enjoying the double music, I'm gonna get rid of that. So yeah, welcome back, friends. Did you get hopefully a bathroom break if you needed it and all that great stuff? Let's go there. So yeah, we are now at a point where I want to check in a little bit. The first thing is looking at your character sheets. I see the avatars. I see those new names. Jen, yours. I see the cleric and blank avatar still. You still working on that stuff, or do you need some help? Not to push you.
I kind of need some help.
Okay, no problem. What do you
Click
need,
on the
friend?
manage button.
So you actually, on your character sheet, you should be able to just select the picture, like the actual avatar, the little green logo, and it pops up. So you can upload an image and change the name. Oh, Cora, you're a Slytherin?
Yes. Does that surprise anybody?
I mean, no, but... Are you still having some trouble there, Jen? I just want to make sure that I'm helpful.
Yeah, I'm so lost.
Oh, no worries at all. What are you trying to do?
I'm just trying to put it in my picture and stuff. And it's
you
not
dropped
working.
it in Discord, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I am actually...
So what I had to do, Jen, is I had to scroll all the way down to where all the avatar pictures are in the frames, and then it says upload file.
And if you need to, I can always jump in and do it from my side if you need to.
I have a question.
Yeah, what's up?
So my character is supposed to be really smart,
Okay.
meaning she would probably be like a go-to person on puzzles. I'm not good at puzzles. Do I have to solve the puzzles, or does my character solve the puzzles?
The character solves the puzzles.
Okay. So
So,
I'm not going to be like solving word puzzles and stuff.
no, not
It's just going to be
necessarily.
like there's
No,
a puzzle here, your character can solve it.
Yeah, the beauty about D&D is that depending on where the player sits in their comfort level, there's a chance that you will come across something that you as a player might not be able to handle, but your character might. So I, as a DM, make the decision that instead of it being like, hey, how do you solve this? It's just be like, why don't you have your character roll this real quick? And then I tell you, your character figures out, and I explain how that process works. So, depending on what's brought forth, it may be one thing or the other.
Okay, cool. Yeah, my character is definitely a Ravenclaw, and I'm a Hufflepuff. Not the same.
Totally get that. But. How you doing, Jen?
Almost there.
Okay, again, no pressure at all. I'm trying. I just want to be helpful where I can. Because, like I mentioned at the top, there's a lot to take in. Thank you, Alyssa, for the hydrate. Also, as much as I want it to be, D&D Beyond is a lot more complicated than it needs to be. Like, whatever happened to just printing off a cool picture on the internet and then just printing out an actual character sheet and just drawing on it with pencil? Whatever happened to those? We just have to be in the middle of a pandemic where we can't get together and do this in person.
Much rather just print off this character sheet that you have in Discord and just write stuff in.
And write all the stuff in. Yeah, and again,
Yeah.
if we were in person, that's what I would have recommended. And we would have all had dice, because I got, you see that the smiley face bag right back here on my shelf? That, which I don't know if you can see in the camera, you can see it on stream. That is filled with all of my extra dice. I have 4 extra sets in there, just in case.
In high school, I started collecting them just because they're so cool looking.
So you actually have dice?
Yeah, I have like four full sets.
Oh, that's legit.
Minus the 100-sided one.
Very cool. Another thing that I'm hoping to get, for people in the chat as well as you three, something that I'm hoping to be able to accomplish with these D&D streams going forward is I love the idea of doing drop-in D&D, where if we get a couple people that, you know, once we get past this like a little bit of a hump of getting the characters finished, being able to have like a pool of characters. Kelly just asked if we are allowing digital or physical dice. We are allowing digital dice because D&D Beyond's randomizer is pretty solid. But if someone does do a physical die roll, we're just going to make sure that we can kind of not prove that the dice roll was accurate, but you know, I got an extra camera so I can show the dice roll on my side if I need to, and we can talk about that sort of stuff. But digital dice is fully acceptable. But yeah, the hope is that we could just have a pool of characters that people can just grab, and then we could just do D&D on a Saturday. That we could just jump together and go. That this creation part of it will be done already, so people could just grab one, look it over the course of a day, say, like I give the characters out at the beginning of the day, and that evening we play D&D together.
Oh my gosh, so like several people can build onto this one character. That's cool.
Exactly. So that way you may a little bit of the honor system, Kelly, yes. But the thing that's really cool about this is that you may play with this character right now, and we may continue together with it, or if we decide that we're gonna like release these characters and other people can play with them, you might play with them from level 1 to 2, and then someone else plays with them from 2 to 5, and then you pick back up and play this character from 5 to 8. That you could be able to jump in and just be like, oh my god, they have so many more spells, and where did they grab this bow from? Like, that sort of stuff, and you can kind of check in with this player like an old friend sort of thing. But again, pipe dreams, things of the future. Hopes and dreams, hopes and dreams. Okay, so I am going to do this real quick. Just so that way we got things kind of up and running from my end. So Alyssa is a brand new mod of the channel since last week, I believe. And she has systematically found all of the bot accounts and just gotten rid of them in my chat. And I'm so freaking proud and happy about it because, you know, because I'm just sitting here trying to do all the bots today. Because I'm trying to just do my stream and have a good time. I don't notice that all these bots are jumping in and doing stuff. And she just jumps on them right away and yeets them out of here. There goes another one. Yeet it out of here. What I'm trying to say is that I appreciate you, so thank you. Are you good, Jen, or do you need a little bit more time?
All good.
Amazing! Okay, let me just import some things to get things squared away. Awesome. Cool. So now, in the D&D chat, friends, you should see a link that says, I think Battle Map Server Client or something. Should be like relatively recent in the chat stream. Let me know when you get that connected and you open it up in your browser. Because, by the way, I am done presenting in Discord, so no need to keep that window open. It can just get buried in the background just for audio at this point.
Wait, what am I looking for?
So in the D&D channel, there should be a what you call it? A link that says,
It's at the top of everything he posted today. D&D map server.
D&D map server?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, thank you,
Oh,
Jen. I was just about to do that and you jumped on it. Everybody is so efficient here. I appreciate it. Oh, don't break your chair, Dustin. You've done that already. The frickin'... Okay, so what happened was, which, by the way, I don't know if you... for anybody on stream... I have the audio of when I fell, and now is a soundboard button. So it just... I'm okay! I'm fine! Which I absolutely love. But the little lever that stops it from leaning back just popped open, and that's why my chair broke last time. It popped open, I leaned back too fast, and my chair shattered from underneath me. It was bad. So, anyway, and you pinned it. Okay, everybody's great. Okay, so you clicked on that, and you should now see, I think it should say, like, WebSocket disconnected, and Encounter Plus. Game paused. And it says Encounter Plus in the top left.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So from there, you should be able to go to Encounter Plus and Settings, and the instructions that I post in the D&D channel, you should be able to A, set your character name, B, set a color for your magic wand, and then C, select the token that you can control on the web browser. So you should see all three of your characters there.
I'm not seeing where it says the token, like where it says the three characters.
Does it say none? There's a chance that it
Yeah.
says none. Okay. Give
That's
me
what it says for
a...
mine too.
Okay. Give me a second. Oh no. My scroll wheel stopped working on my mouse.
Oh no. It's broken.
It is.
Wait, the one that you just replaced? Or did you not replace it from yesterday?
I didn't replace it from yesterday. I just fixed it. Well, I thought I fixed it. So
The map
do you
popped up.
Yeah, do you see the tokens now?
No.
It's frozen. Let me reload it and see if
Okay.
it does.
Technology.
Fun when it works.
Terrible when it doesn't.
Well, reloaded it and it's just a green screen.
Mine still doesn't have anything else.
Okay. So here's what we'll do. Once we get into combat, I will hopefully present things and everything will be there. But for right now, as long as you type in your name and the color of your magic wand, we should be able to be at a spot where I can then present things and show you what you all see. Make sense?
Uh-huh.
Okay. From here, we are at a point where I believe I can actually kind of start things. Do we have any questions in regards to your character sheets, or I guess any lingering questions that are kind of there? Because most of the questions are probably going to get asked and answered once we get started. But I just wanted to kind of give this one last, before we get into it, spot where we can ask any lingering questions. How do we feel?
No questions from me.
Okay. Now, I do want to again say thank you all for sticking through that entire presentation section, so that way we can do a little bit of actual playing, because I know that some of us have to get going. It is a Saturday, so it's not too extreme, but I don't want to keep you all for too long, because I just wanted to give you all an intro and get you playing a little bit on this process. So, without further ado, I do think I will open up this so I can view the nice little blurb, and we can get started. Let me switch the music to something a little bit more interesting.
Adventure!
Okay. Here we go. In the city of Neverwinter, a dwarf named Gundren Rockseeker asked you to bring a wagon load of provisions to the rough and tumble settlement of Phandalin, a couple of days' travel southeast of the city. Gundren was clearly excited and more than a little secretive about his reasons for the trip, saying only that he and his brother had found something big, and that he'd pay you 10 gold pieces each for escorting his supplies safely to Barthen's Provisions, a trading post in Phandalin. He then set out ahead of you on horse, along with a warrior escort named Sildar Hallwinter, claiming he needed to arrive early to take care of business. You've spent the last few days following the high road south from Neverwinter, and you've just recently veered east along the Tribor Trail. You've encountered no trouble so far, but his territory can be dangerous. Bandits and outlaws have been known to lurk around the trail. And to give you a quick little, where is the picture? Of course, it won't let me do it there. I just want to show you a map of the area that you all are in, because you are familiar with the area. So it would be something that oh, there it is. So here's the map. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so on here we have Neverwinter, which is there located in the middle left of the map. That is where you came from. That is where you got the information, and you are heading now south down the high road, and you just recently took a left to the Tribor Trail to head towards Phandalin, which is located near the bottom middle of the map. You got your bearings, you kind of know where you are. Fantastic.
I have a question.
Yes, of course.
So I was reading my background, and it said that there's people in Phandalin that would like to murder me.
See? Use that.
Okay.
But yeah, those sort of things.
Something that I should tell my party, though, and be like, hey,
yeah.
there's people looking for me.
And this is actually a good time for me to actually let me bring that thing up again. a good opportunity for me to now, since you have taken these characters, to do a quick little introduction of what your character and who your character is. If you want to, I'll go in that same order we did before. Just give me the name, a little description of them, how they look, and maybe a little bit about who they are. So, Becca,
Okay.
who are you playing?
My character's name is Pharrell. She's an elf wizard. She is constantly searching for more knowledge. She's religious. She has a tome that's a record of all her life's work that she will protect above anything else. She spends her life... Wait, am I supposed to be speaking as myself? I dedicate my life?
It's completely up to you.
Okay,
whatever tense makes sense to you.
I am now Sorrel. Anyway, I dedicated my life to Ogma, the all-seeing god of knowledge.
Awesome. Excellent. And now, Jen, who are you playing?
Okay, so I am playing Arnina Albreeze. She's a dwarf and was a previous. Let me switch again. Sorry, I was previously a mercenary sergeant and was part of the Mintarn mercenaries, and I still have some friends that might help us out at a later date. And one of the biggest things that I have is a lot of wisdom and strength in our party. And I have some cousins that are I'll protect a lot, and I'm looking forward to just going, I guess.
Excellent. And I totally forgot to do this with your character, Becca, but Jen, here is yours. The image that you sent and uploaded. This is your representation of your character. And then just so that way I don't feel absolutely terrible, I'm also going to show Becca's character as well. So this is Sorrel, which is absolutely terrifying and creepy, but I'm kind of into it, so good job. So that'll be super fun. And then I'll do this the right way this time. And Cora, why don't you describe your character for us?
I'm Verna Thorngage. I am a halfling gone rogue. I used to be a part of the Red Brands, but someone bamboozled me, and now they're all after me. The head of the Red Brands tried to murder me, so now I'm out for blood.
Ooh.
Based in the city that we're going to.
Intrigue and mystery, I love it. Well, excellent. Thank you for the quick little description, friends. So I need from you all your marching orders. You are all traveling, the three of you, with a carriage being pulled by two mules. The mules themselves can be led from in front, just held on to their lead and pulling them across the road, or getting on the actual wagon and using them that way, or that the three of you are just walking next to it and hoping that the mules follow you. So I'm just wondering, given the job that you have been given and the path that you are walking on, what's your marching order? Who's in front? Who's doing what?
I'm in the front. I'm pulling the mules because I have people after me. I need to be on the lookout. I know what they look like.
Okay. How about you, Jen?
I would say that I'm on the end or like in the back. That way I can kind of like see everything that's going on ahead of me in case I need to heal anybody super quick.
Either of you good with animal handling?
Yes.
Okay. And then, Becca, that kind of leaves you for the middle.
Yeah. I'm good with being. You said there was a carriage, right?
Yeah.
Or like a something. I'd probably be good sitting on that. That way, if I needed to do some magic, I could.
Ah, okay. So you got kind of the high ground. Yeah.
Yeah.
The high ground attitude.
Yeah.
Perfect. Great. Awesome. Then in that case, we have basically VSR in that order. So Verna, Sorel, and then Arnina? I'm sorry. How do you pronounce the first name?
Arnina.
Arnina. Perfect. Which, by the way, very unique names. I applaud you all. So many people, when I play for the first time, they're just like, my character's name is Bob. I'm like, okay. Bob is a sorcerer. Well, great. So y'all are on this path. And let's move on to that next section. So, you have been on the Tribor Trail for about a half a day at this point. You're keeping your marching order. Verna in the front, leading the wagon. The rest of you behind, keeping a lookout, maybe having some small talk conversations. But as you progress, you notice something in the road. Verna actually notices it first. You see, as you're coming down the path, two horses that seem to be sitting or lying in the middle of the road, blocking the path about 50 sower feet ahead of you. Each of them, from what you can tell, has several black feathered arrows sticking out of them. The woods press close in the trail here with a steep embankment on either side with dense thickets up on the top of these embankments, far up above your head, something you can't see up to. You can just see the trees and the bushes up on these embankments. Are you going to progress forward? Or one of you just going forward? What's the plan?
I'll go forward because I think it's the red brand. And I want to make sure the other two are safe because neither one of them have very much armor.
Okay, cool. So you just kind of essentially leave them behind for the time being. And you make your way up. I'm just going to move your character for the sake of brevity. You get up there and you start looking across the bodies. I'm going to have you roll an investigation check for me. So what you do for that is you roll a d20 and you add the investigation modifier. Or you can just simply click the investigation modifier plus number and it'll roll the dice for you right there on the screen.
What does that mean?
Did you roll?
Yeah, it says 23, but it showed a B.
23B?
No, like the dice showed a B.
Oh, yeah, the B is a natural 20. So, congratulations, my friend. A natural 20 of your first roll. That is incredible.
Hell yeah.
I applaud that so much. So, good job there. So, you rolled a 23 in your investigation. Excellent. So, with that, you start looking through and you notice that it looks like they've been dead for about a day. They're not fresh. This isn't a fresh thing. You also identify that these horses are the ones that Gundren and Sildar ran off on the day before. They're the ones they left early. It's their horses. You also notice that the arrows are what clearly killed the horses. Nothing else did. And as you approach, you notice that the saddlebags have actually been looted. They're ripped apart. Nothing of importance has been left. And nearby, you see an empty map case strewn across the ground with nothing in it. How did an arrow slice that arrow? That's a really good point. So that is what you find. Do you head back to your party members to get a to give them the information?
Yes, since there's no other loot for me to take.
Okay. You turn around to start heading back, and I give me 2 seconds. I need you to make a dexterity saving throw for me.
$15, it says.
A 15. Excellent. So, you hear something out of the corner of your periphery and see something fly out of the woods on the top of the embankment as an arrow flies directly in front of you and sticks in the dirt. You look up towards the hill and you notice a imposing tiny creature, small humanoid creature at the top of the hill, with a bow loose of its quiver, a goblin staring down at you, and he lets out a scream. He just goes, "Ah!" And you see another goblin appear from behind him, and two others appear on the other embankment above you, looking down with their bows ready to fire at you again. Both Arnina and Sorel, I need you to roll perception checks. So there should be a in your skills a perception section.
Do I click on the number you said?
Yep, click on the number and it should do a roll.
14. Oh wait, 17, sorry.
17 and a 5.
14 plus 3.
Okay. So, Sorel, with your position on top of the wagon, you look in the distance and you actually see these shadowy figures come out at the top of these embankments, and I don't want to mispronounce it. Verna actually stop in her tracks and look up towards the right-hand side, and you see that this is actually some sort of ambush or otherwise. You're not sure what the creatures are, but you know that Verna is not safe and is feet in front of you. At this point, I need you all to roll initiative. So this is your first ever encounter. Jen, because you didn't notice this happening, you will go last this round, and then I'll put you into the initiative order the second round.
Oh my gosh, that's cool. I can see what the others rolled on my screen. I didn't know that.
I'm also going to switch to this because we are now in combat. Okay. So we have for initiative rolls. Verna, you rolled a 6. We got Arnita, you rolled a 12, which again, you will go last this first time, but next I'll put you right in the order that you belong. And then Sorel, did you do your roll? You did. 18.
Yeah, I did.
Good initiative roll. Very good, very good. So, at the top of the round, how this whole process is going to go. Oh, that's a really good point. Thank you. So a very good point was mentioned that we can't see the other players. Look at that. I moved it. Now everybody can be seen. So at the top of the round, how this process is going to go, just like my explanation, is that we will go person by person, and you'll tell me what you'd like to accomplish. I'll let you know how to do that process, and once you're done with your turn, we move on to the next person. So top of the round, we have Sorrel. You've noticed that this is happening, but you are a good distance away from people. You have the opportunity to maybe do something from this range, or you can try to get up there and do something about it. What's your process?
I probably try to get closer
Okay.
to help.
Yep. You have a movement of 30 feet, so I am going to scoot you over there to see how close you can actually get. So you can get to about right there.
So now, is this the only thing I can do?
Nope. You can move,
Okay.
do an action, bonus action, and then like yell or scream or something like that.
Okay. Because, like, I can speak Goblin. So, like,
You
a part of me
can?
thought, yeah, I can. So a part of me
Excellent.
thought maybe try to, like, reason with them or, like, figure out what's going on and talk to them. Is
Okay.
that a
Oh,
thing?
what the fuck?
Just like W2F, bro.
This is not the vibe, you guys.
Well, I'm just saying, they're probably going to tell you that they're killing me for the red brands.
Right.
There's a chance.
Or
but
I
yeah,
could distract them to try to get...
just be like,
out.
hey, over here, that sort of thing.
Yeah, like,
And then you'll be like, oh my god.
not
I went to-
necessarily create a diversion, but like if they can instead look at me instead
Well,
of
and
her.
speaking Goblin out of an elf mouth is going to look weird to them. So that might work. If that's something you want to do, I'm going to have you roll a persuasion check.
Okay.
So you're basically trying to persuade them to pay attention to you instead of...
If I have a -1 in persuasion, should I not try to do persuasion?
do you want to try to intimidate them, maybe? To try to be like, hey, what the do you think you're doing? That sort of
I have
thing.
a -1 in intimidation. Too.
Okay. The other option is that I'm trying to look at your character sheet.
I have +5 in investigation and religion. Those are not super helpful right now.
So you
For
do
sure.
have
As a goblin.
you do have Ray of Frost
Yeah.
as a spell.
Oh, yeah.
And Ray of Frost actually allows you to let me double check. Ray of Frost is instantaneous, one action, so you can do it after your movement, no issue. It does a frigid beam, and a ranged spell attack on the target. If it hits, it takes 1d8 cold damage. So if they're in range, so you can totally hit one of them with this spell if you so
But
chose.
I could only hit one of them.
Technically, actually, let me get out a ruler and see how far that other one is, because it's a straight line, which means that if where you're standing right now on the map, you could technically hit 2 as long as they're in range. So let's get out this ruler. So from where you're standing, oh, you could totally hit both of them, no question, as long as you make that roll.
Okay. Let's try it. So I roll this plus that's in the Ray of Frost part.
Correct. So you're going to hit the, so it's a ranged spell attack. So you'll roll, yeah, in your
Okay.
character sheet, it should say there's a roll for it. So, okay, that definitely hits. And it's actually a critical hit, which means now that we're here and I can actually, you guys are rolling incredible. Holy God. This means that now you roll your damage dice, and whatever you get on your dice, you can actually click and hold. I believe you click and hold on the damage, and it can say critical, and you can actually roll a critical damage, which means double the dice and then add your modifier.
Where?
So in the damage section of your spell, It should say
The 2D
1d8.
snowflake?
Say that again?
The 2D8 snowflake?
Yes, the 2d8 snowflake.
I can't click on it.
Oh, then are you okay with me doing the roll for you?
Yeah.
Okay. So since it's critical, I will roll this, and it shows up on the screen, so that's a 5. But because it's a critical damage, it means that your roll was actually a 6, and you hit 1 and 2. So your ray of frost comes out of your arm, and you see it cascade across the field and up this embankment. You watch as the grass starts to frost over, and some of it actually shatter and fall away. The frost rolls up over the embankment and hits this first goblin, the one that let loose the arrow towards Verna. And you see, at first, no pupils, no whites of their eyes at all, but as this spell washes over the embankment, you watch and see the whites of this goblin's eyes inflame as it is engulfed by frost, and it is standing there, not able to move, and you watch as its arm shatters and starts to fall apart, and then you see the rest of it start to. But before that process is done, the goblin behind it, the frost hits them, and you see their ears break off, and the bow that they're holding onto get to the point where they can't move from their arms. He's still standing, but he is very, very frozen and cold. The first goblin, you completely
Obliterated.
destroy. And it's still, throughout this whole process, you're watching piece by piece as it falls apart and tumbles off the edge of the embankment. Its bowstring snaps. The quiver of bows that it has tumbles down and shatters on the ground like it's been hit with dry ice. So congratulations, the first kill of the encounter. A very vicious way for a death to occur, but that's what happens when you roll critical. So very good job. You are done with your movement. You are done with your action. You do have a bonus action that you can do, which... thank you for the biddies. So with your bonus action, Goblin Boy dead. I'm not sure what specific bonus actions that you do have, but you can still say or do something if you so choose. Because Arnina was all the way in the back, you could, I will allow you to have, as you were running, to say something, so that way Arnina, your initiative wouldn't be last. Was that something you would want to do, Sorel? To just be like, hey, Arnina, there's shit going down. We need to get fighting.
Yeah.
Hey, bud.
Yeah, you're just like, hey, we gotta go. So because that's the case, that would end your turn. That was the step of your turn. And that does mean that instead of being last, Arnina, you are now second. Because Sorel was able to tell you, hey, this shit's going down, you're able to jump in and go right after her. So, what are we doing, friend?
Okay, maybe I think I'm gonna run up by where Sorel is,
Okay.
or move up by her,
Okay.
and then
So that's about as far as you can go because your movement's only 25. Does that look good, or do you want to move elsewhere? Or does that look fine?
are the two goblins still on the other side of the embankment?
Yes, they are right here.
Solid question.
Okay. Am I within 30 of that opposite side?
Of where G3 and G4 are?
Yes.
Let's check. Let's grab that ruler. No, you're just out of range.
Okay.
What were you thinking of doing?
Trying to cast thaumaturgy.
Oh, thaumaturgy.
Yes.
Oh, because you can do like a big thing, yeah. Okay. You also have the ability to cast Sacred Flame. Because that's a 60-foot range, so you could hit G1, 2, or 3.
Let's go ahead and cast that on 3.
On 3? Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. So that looks like it is a dexterity saving throw by G3. So I'm going to jump in there and roll a dexterity saving throw and see what he does. So he rolled an 11. What is the save DC on that? So it should say
13.
13. Okay, he does not make the save. So he takes the full effects, which would be 1d8 radiant damage. So click on the damage button on that spell, and it should roll it. Y'all gotta stop making these powerful hits.
I mean, first roll of the game was natural 20.
So the flame, you reach out and say a phrase into the air, and you see these flames start to come down from the sky onto G3. The goblin tries to dodge out of the way, but to no avail, as these flames first hit the bow and arrow. You watch the string snap and the arrow smack him in the face. He falls down on his back, and the fire keeps coming down. You hear this as the flame completely engulfs him. And good job. The second kill of the game. Good job. The G4 actually looks over, looks at Verna, and starts to recoil his bow a little bit and stays put. Okay, so that's the end of your move. That was your action. Do you have any bonus actions that you can do? Again, level 1, there's not many bonus actions that are possible at this point, but...
Where are they at again?
So in your tabs, there should be a section. It says actions and then bonus actions. At least I think so.
Two-weapon fighting, but I don't think that would do much.
Nah, not at this range, no.
Yeah.
So, okay, cool. So you know that for later if you get closer to one of these guys. So that'll be great. Awesome. So that is the end of your turn. The next one would have been Goblin 1, but not anymore. So we now move on to G2, who G2 looks at the situation, freezing up in his little situation that he's in, and he is going to try to loose the arrow towards Sorrel, actually. So he's going to roll for that short bow attack. And he rolls a 13 plus 4, so that is a 17. And your armor class is a 18. So he lets loose that arrow, and whether it's the frozen fingertips or the now very inadequate bow that is now starting to crack at its seams, he lets go of the arrow, it flies through the air, and before it can even hit you, it turns into snow and just disappears and just sprinkles around you before it melts on the floor. You see him shivering, actually try to switch and grab a scimitar from his back as he tries to leap off the embankment, which is 10 feet off the ground. And he rolls a dexterity saving throw to see if he lands. He does. He then lands right between. No, he jumped. Don't do that. He didn't run around. He jumps down and lands perfectly with the scimitar, looking at Verna with a fiery eye. He tries to let out a sound, a scream, a battle cry of any kind, and you just hear because his vocal cords are frozen. So that ends his turn. G4 takes out or has his bow, not affected by anybody, and does finish putting away the arrow and the bow and throws it on his back and actually starts to take off down this trail and actually makes it essentially out of view of everybody at this point. He's off the corner of the map and taken off down the trail. So completely disengaged and just took off running. And then finally, Verna, it is your turn. You are now smack dab in the middle of this, an arrow in the ground in front of you, a tink, tink, tink of all the glass, frozen chunks of goblin coming down the embankment next to you, and a almost pretty much frozen to death goblin behind you who's trying his best to scream but can't get anything out. What do you do, friend?
I'm going to use, I don't know, would it be intimidation or investigation to go to the almost dead goblin and be like, who sent you?
Are you going to grab him, or are you just going to kind of turn around and just yell at him?
Just turn around and talk to him. I don't need to grab him. He can't go nowhere. He's frozen.
Good
Can't
point.
he not talk?
That's a good point. He is a little frozen right now. So you could still do this. I'm not sure of the response you're going to get out of him.
True. And G1 and G2 are dead, right?
G2 is still alive. G1 and G3 are dead. The two gray ones.
Oh. And G4 is not within 80 feet of me, is he?
No, G4 took off. He's probably closer to 100 feet away from you. As far as you can tell, because he's out of your vision.
Okay. I think I'm just going to investigate the goblins' bodies then.
Okay,
Can I
so
do
you're
that?
just
Are they
gonna...
both close enough?
Yeah, you'll have to climb up the wall. So just do a quick little, a quick strength check to make sure that you can get up there. Because you are a what? A halfling?
11.
11? Okay, so you climb up and you use all of your movement to get up to G1.
Okay.
So it's only 10 feet, but you needed the rest of that 15 feet worth of time to actually get up there. And then roll an investigation check for me that you just check the body real quick as...
18!
Or what's left of it. So you dig around in some of what's left of this frozen, shattered body, and you actually find... Let me make sure I tell you exactly what it is. You find 2 frozen arrows that are frozen to the quiver and laying on the ground. The quiver looks like it's broken and damaged because of the fall, but the arrows might be okay. You also find a gold piece, a single gold piece, which again is frozen, but looks like it should be okay because it's not living tissue. And that is all you find when you investigate that. half frozen.
Do their
goblin.
arrows match the ones that were in the horse?
Yes, they do. With an 18, you can determine that those arrows do match what's in the horse.
So I'm determining
Smart
that
thinking.
the dead horses were a trap and they were waiting either for me or someone else to come down this trail to ambush them. And I'm telling my
Potentially.
team this.
You
This is my thoughts.
Okay, I was gonna say I would say you couldn't tell anybody at this point because of the short period of
Yeah.
combat, but you do have that in your brain now that you can share
Yes.
later if you so choose. Okay. End of your turn. We are back at the top of the round with Sorel. You have completely annihilated the goblin, which has now been rooted through by Verna. One has taken off around the corner, and there is one that is nearly frozen to death right next to the horses, about 60, 70 feet in front of you.
Do I have a choice to not do anything, or do I have to do something?
Oh, you have a choice to do nothing. That is
Like,
totally
can I
fine.
just move and then that's it? I don't think there's anything I can gain from them, a dead
Okay.
one, or like I don't think that they can help me find Sister Gorell in Vandalin. So I think
Okay.
that my character would just keep walking.
Okay. So
Or
if
wait,
you're not
where's our
doing
cart?
anything,
Do
are
we
you
have to
just
go back
gonna...
and get our cart?
The cart is still back there. That is true. Do you want to run back there, or do you want to
Yeah,
run ahead?
let me go back and get the mule, then the cart.
Okay, cool. So you run back and just get to the cart. I'm going to say that you get there no problem because you disengaged. You're not fighting anymore. You're just going over to the cart to grab the stuff and just kind of stand there. Okay, yeah, and again, that is totally a viable action and player turn, is that I don't want to do anything. I just want to exit out of the situation because sometimes that's the best move. So, cool.
So then follow-up question on that. If
Yeah.
I want to move with the cart, like if I want the cart to move with me and I'm standing on the cart, can I just say like I want to move with my cart? Or is now if I'm standing on the cart, if I say I want to move, the cart's coming with me? Or do I have to be pulling the cart in order to move it?
You could probably you could do just a quick animal handling check to make sure that the animals listen to you and that the
Okay.
animals could just kind of like roll on the cart with you sitting on it. You just
Okay.
like do like a thwip or a get on little doggy, one of those little things.
Okay. So I'll do that just to make sure that, so
Okay.
then the next time I would move, I wouldn't have to say like, I'm taking the cart with me. I could just move and the cart would come.
Correct, yes.
As long
And
as I
because
get a
we're
good
still in
animal
combat,
handling.
we'll still do it in initiative order, but once things kind of get finished with the actual open combat, then it's just you're
Yeah.
walking next to the cart and you don't have to roll anything.
Okay.
Or walking with the cart. So roll an animal handling check now that you're over there.
11.
11, okay. So one of the mules looks at you and just starts moving while the other one is just kind of like dragging its feet, and you start to notice that yes, they do start moving, but they were much happier with Verna being the one that was pulling them. You can kind of tell they're just like, fine, we know we need to move, but we're kind of upset that it's you, and they just kind of walk pulling the cart with you on it. So they start moving. That's the end of your turn. Arnina, my friend. So you are standing, let me double check. I don't want to tell you the wrong info. You're standing about 60 feet as the crow flies away from G2. But they are kind of around the embankment, so if you want to do anything to them, you're going to have to get a little bit closer, step away from the wall. Are you there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Can I try and wait, can you repeat what you just said one more time, Dustin?
Yeah, sure. You're about 60 feet as the crow flies away from Goblin 2. Sorel just ran back behind you to grab the cart. You see one of your players has started to already loot one of the bodies, and G2 is kind of around a corner. So it's if... Oh, you only have a green screen? Sorry.
Fixed it.
Okay. But yeah, you can see G2, but because he's frozen and kind of right next to the wall, if you want to do anything to him, you'd probably have to get a little bit closer and kind of like walk around to get a direct shot of him. And also, while we're doing this process, legitimately all all options are on the table. I can always let you know how something could be possible. So running away, checking on something, not doing anything, all of them are viable options.
Is it possible for me to move closer and use Sacred Flame to kind of like defrost him so we could talk to him?
Oh, see, that is the smartness that I love about D&D players. You totally can. You won't have to move that far because he's in range already. You'll just have to kind of move like in line with him. Yeah, Cora, what's up?
That won't hurt me because I'm right next to him.
You're up on the embankment.
Okay.
So
okay.
as long as
just making sure.
Yeah, as long as Arnina scoots over so that way it's a straight shot and you're not trying to shoot through the embankment, you should be able to be right there, no problem. So Sacred Flame, that's a saving throw, right? Yeah, dexterity. Let me roll that. So he rolled an 8, which doesn't save. So now you can roll the damage for that. And you're not doing a killing blow, you're just trying to defrost him, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So this goes along that like knocking unconscious thing, that you have intent to not kill. So you're smart enough with your spell to just hit them in such a way to kind of do what you're asking. And then as long as you succeed, which you did, it should go just fine. So just roll damage so that way I know how bad you hurt him, if any. You already did that. Good job. So the Sacred Flame rains down from the sky again, but you're a little bit more meticulous about this, and it actually lands around him, so the heat kind of fills his area rather than burning him alive. You see him start to move his joints a little bit better, and you see him let out a giant big breath, and he puts his hands on his knees, and he just lets out a deep breath. You can now tell that while he was frozen, his skin was cracking open a little bit, and he's not looking too hot. He's still alive. He's unfrozen, but he is very, very bloody and very close to death. But you successfully defrosted him. Bravo. That was a smart-ass move. Cool. So now you have this other goblin. Not looking too hot, but he is now unfrozen and standing next to the horses. You do have a little bit more movement if you wanted to. You've currently moved 15. You can move another 10 if you want to.
I'm just going to move closer to the goblin.
Perfect. So right there. I think your movement's 25, yeah? 25, cool.
Yes.
So that ends your movement, ends your turn, and you're not close enough to do your two-handed weapon thing, so that is the end of your thing. Bravo! Good frickin' turn. Excellent. So, speaking of goblins, now that he's defrosted, the first thing that he thinks of is grabbing that scimitar that was on his back and starts running towards you, Arena. But here's the thing. He's got tiny legs, and he can only make it here. So, because okay, I was going to check if, Verna, if you had an attack of opportunity because he entered your space but then left it. But because you're 10 feet in the air on this embankment, you're technically out of his range.
But
anyway.
I can use my bow for 80 feet.
yes, you can, but because he's not within 5 feet of you, it doesn't count as an attack of opportunity. So that's one of those little nuances that they have to be close enough for you to go, hey, what the fuck you do? Like that sort of thing. Oh, you know how it goes. What the fuck you do? So he starts running, and he decides that he's going to try to throw his scimitar at you, which this weapon is not made for throwing. So he is going to roll at disadvantage. So 2 dice, I take the lower number, which is a 2. So he rolls a 6, which does not break your armor class. So the scimitar flies through the air, and picture like one of those floppy, I don't know how to describe. Wait, maybe I can do this in band terms. Picture a color guard person dropping the flag after a spin. And it just kind of tumbles and just kind of, exactly that on the ground. And the scimitar just kind of makes a clang, 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 clang on the dirt. And the goblin looks at you and goes, ah! Like, oh, this is it. I'm done for at this point. And he just kind of shrugs his shoulders and just, that's the end of his turn. You like how I can pull it around the band now that I understand some of my audience? So yeah, he completely whiffed that. At this point, the other goblin is out of sight. You have no idea where he is at this point. Verna, it is your turn. You've just gotten done investigating. You heard something behind you, a scurry, a clanging of metal. You're not exactly sure what it is because you're trying to figure out what you can take from this goblin. What are you doing next?
Can I get to the wizard at all or communicate with them, or are they too far?
You can probably, as a halfling, it really depends on what you want to say.
I just want to be like, can you come over to the goblin so I can interrogate them? Because they speak goblin, so they'd understand what he's saying.
Oh, so you're just saying, hey, get over here, that sort of thing.
With how far away I have to be able to communicate with the goblin.
The general rule is within, like your movement distance, like 30 to 60 feet. As long as you're like speaking up, you should be able to talk to anyone within that range.
Okay.
If they're further than that, usually it's a shout, and I'd have to be like, I don't know if they heard you. They might have, but you're roughly close enough, especially in your next move. If you get closer with the wagon, you should be plenty close enough to talk to them.
Okay, so I want to go down to, is it G2? That's the
Yep.
I want to go down to G2 and grab him.
And grab him? Okay. What we're going to do now is called a contest, where you and I are going to roll the same type of check, and whoever's higher beats it. So your check is to try to grab him. My check is to try to get out of the grab. So you're going to do an athletics check to see if you can grab him. And then I'm going to roll a strength check to make sure, it could be worse. I'm gonna roll a strength check to see if I can, actually dexterity check to see if I can have him sneak out of the way before you grab him. Okay, he rolls a 10, so he is able to sneak out from this grab. You kind of reach out, and he's a little bit shorter than you, actually, and is able to duck underneath your arms and kind of get out of the way, and he lets out a little like, ah, nah! Like, if you understood Goblin, he said, oh shit, and just kind of ducked out of the way for a second. But because you had to get down from the hill and you moved a couple feet, that is your movement, that was your action, so that's the end of your turn. We have Sorel. The cart is now pushing you forward. Because it's a leisurely pace and it's a horse, I'll say that you got about 25 feet. You know what? I'm gonna say that you got right behind Arnina. You're like right behind with the cart. And at this point, you can say whatever you need to with G2.
Okay. So now when I'm doing this, like, am I gonna ask you what I would ask the goblin, and then we'll figure out what the goblin would respond with? Or do I tell you I want to interrogate the goblin?
if you just want to go up and just straight up interrogate or say something, as a DM trying to get people out and play, I would, if you want to, you can say what you would want to, and then I can have you roll for it. Or if I just want to say something sternly at him, then I can just have you roll in general. But if you want to say what you say to him, go for it.
Yeah, like, I think I would want to ask who sent them, or if they came of their own will. Okay.
Are you saying this a little bit sternly? Are you holding up a weapon or something like you're gonna attack them if they don't answer you?
No, I don't want to.
Okay.
I'm coming at it peacefully, even though I did just kill one of them.
Okay.
But I want to come at it peacefully for knowledge.
For knowledge. Oh,
right.
Okay.
Right.
Can you roll a persuasion check for me? That you're just trying to be like, hey, dude.
You're like, hey, dude, what's up?
Who sent you?
You're killing the vibe.
Yeah.
Let me know why.
Yes, exactly.
Got a 17.
17,
Yeah.
okay. And he's going to roll. Cool. So he rolled an insight to see what your intentions are. He turns to you because you're speaking in Goblin, and he's just like, well, I came here. Well, I should do a Goblin voice. Let's do a Goblin voice. Are you ready for a Goblin voice? It's going to be terrible.
Goblin mode.
Okay, he's going to be like, well, you see, I was sent here by Cragmaw. Cragmaw, you see? Cragmaw. And he just keeps repeating that name in Goblin. The rest of you just hear, that's all you hear.
You said Cragmaw?
Cragmaw. C-R-A-G-M-A-W.
Cragmaw.
So yeah, you hear that in Goblin. The rest of you hear, probably, if I'm being completely honest, I think my gibberish Goblin was a little bit better than my common speak Goblin. Not to toot my own horn, but yeah, so that's the information you got out of him. Technically, you can get out of the cart and get a little bit closer if you want, because the cart was pulling you, but now you're up there and you've said your speak. That's what you get out of it.
Yeah, I'm good.
Perfect.
Now, I can't tell them what he said until my next turn.
Correct, because you did this whole process, you can let them know who was sent and blah, blah, blah after that point.
Yeah, got it.
Excellent. Okay. Up next, Arnina. You just had a scimitar thrown at you very poorly. And you have completely thawed him, so he's just standing there looking like a wet noodle. A bloody wet noodle.
Bloody wet noodle.
I think I'm going to move closer to him
Perfect.
and try to heal him in hopes of persuading him to tell us something.
I am so happy that you guys are as smart as you are, because this is the sort of stuff as a dungeon master, I was like, you guys are making my job easy. Because this is the... Okay, I'm going to stop praising you and I'm going to do my job. Okay, cool. So you're going to cast, you said cure... What was the spell?
It's cure wounds.
Cure wounds? Okay, I think there's a roll for that, so that way we can see how many hit points he gets bumped up for.
I love burn. It's just like the book.
Heal. Oh, deep. Good job. So, he actually, why isn't this... I'm not going to track the actual, but you actually see his wounds start to seal up, and he looks at you with this very confused look, especially after having a goblin shouting match with your friend behind you in the cart. He just kind of looks at you as he starts to get healed, and he's just like, okay. Like, that's the response you get out of him with body language, not actual goblin speak. And kind of looks at you and looks at Verna behind you and just kind of stand still, waiting for what the hell is going to happen next. Anything else? You move in any closer? You trying anything else? You're close enough if you wanted to heal him, then attack. I'm totally kidding, but
I think I'm gonna move back just a little bit towards Sorrel.
Okay. Because you have 25 movement, great. Because of what you just did, I don't think the goblin is going to try to attack you as you leave his space. He would see that heal as something non-threatening, so as you moved away, he wouldn't try to slice you or scratch you or anything, because one, he doesn't have any weapons, because he threw his scimitar and his bow broke. But he's just going to stand there as you walk away and look a little terrified, a little confused, a little thankful. He's not sure how he feels. Well, great. That ends your turn. We are now at Mr. Goblin, and he looks to all of you and just puts up his hands, shaking a little bit. And that ends the first round of combat for tonight. Good job. A lot of creative thinking. That was legit. But you now have outside of combat, so it's not turn-based anymore. It's you know, I have a thought, and I'll have you do checks and stuff like that. But annihilated 2 goblins, one of which is still up on the hill. You can actually smell him at this point because of the fire. Goblin 1 frozen, picked by Verna. But now there's this goblin who, hands up, looks like he's going to cooperate, looking at all of you like, okay, what are we doing next? That sort of thing.
Is this where I can tell them now my thoughts on the arrows?
You can pass that along.
Okay. I think that this was a trap by the goblins, whoever they're working for. I personally think that they're working for the Red Brand. Because they pretty much own the city that we are going to. I can't hear you, but
Sorry. I said, is this where I can tell them what I heard now?
Yes, you can.
Okay. So they told me, I asked them who was sent them, and they said Pragma sent them. I don't know who that is, but Pragma was the name. And
can I look at my character sheet and see if they're related
Wait, is it
to the Red Brand at
Pragma?
all?
C or P?
It's Cragmaw with a
Crag?
G. Cragmaw.
C. R-A-G, yeah, Pragma.
Cragmaw.
Okay.
And we can look at our backgrounds and like check names and stuff.
Oh yeah, if there's anything that kind of sticks out.
So now that I know it's Cragmaw, I think it's a goblin tribe, but my background says a goblin tribe has made its lair in an ancient ruin called Cragmaw Castle. But I don't know who Cragmaw is. It doesn't expand further on who Cragmaw is.
Does it say where it's located?
This would be a situation where if you wanted to, because it's something that you're kind of familiar with, you could roll a history check as like, is this something that in the throes of my mind I might know more about? Or you could just tell them what you know at this point and maybe progress from here. But I am all for you rolling a history check to see if you know more.
Yeah, why don't I do a history check?
Perfect.
Why not? For fun. Oh. Bummer.
Better than half. Or almost half, I'm gonna say.
Okay. From what you remember, the Cragmaw and that stuff is actually in a pseudo opposite direction of where you're headed. That if you followed this path all the way down, you would find Phandalin. But if you turn around a little bit and head towards the woods, the Neverwinter Wood, I'll actually pull the map up again. That you'll see Phandalin right there. That if you turned around and started going towards the Neverwinter Wood a little bit, that's where Cragmaw Castle is. And from what you can tell, that's roughly where the goblin ran off to when it took off. Other than that, you don't know specifics. You don't know exactly where things are. You just remember that it's somewhere near the woods, and that's roughly where the goblin went.
Okay.
But yeah. The goblin actually, as you're having this conversation, says to you, Sorel, actually, is just staring you up and down as you're having this conversation, not really understanding what's going on, but yells out at you and says, okay, goblin again, if you don't kill me, I can take you to our hideout.
Damn, what a narc.
I do be
And-
liking that narco right now.
He hears that word over his shoulder from Verna and kind of looks at you with a dirty look and then looks back at you as Sorel and says, I'm not a narc. I'm not a narc. I'm don't think ill of me. I just don't want to die. Not for something stupid like this. And again, Verna and Arnina, you just hear per usual. But yes, at this point he's standing there. Are you passing this info along, Sorel?
Yeah. So the goblin can take us to the castle of Cragmaw. Side question. So, like, can I tell them why I would have interest in going to Cragmaw Castle? Or am I supposed to be keeping that a secret?
That is completely up to you. Your backstory is your backstory. If you think your character would be open about it, that information,
Yeah.
then by all means say, hey, I know about this. But if it's something you think your character would keep close to the chest, then don't pass it along.
Okay, and then secondary question, we have to stay together during the game, right?
You don't
Like,
have
I
to.
can't go off to the castle while they go the other way?
You don't have to. It's a pain in the ass for a dungeon master, but it's possible for you to split.
Okay, just wondering. So, yeah. So essentially, I really think we should go to Cragmaw Castle because they did some messed up shit to my god, Ogmon. So I need to go reclaim that altar for my god because she will reward me when I do so.
When you say your god's name, you see the goblin actually fall down and get into almost like a oh my god sort of pose, and he's just like, no, not them, and he gets really, really upset after you say that name.
Good.
Oh,
So do you all want to pass that along?
Verna
or-
does not, because Verna worked in a gang. And Verna knows how gangs work. There's one goblin, there's hundreds of goblins waiting for us at the hideout, ready to murder us all. We're walking into another trap. We just got out of a trap from the goblin.
Well,
You
yeah,
could-
Cragmaw Castle is invaded by goblins right now, but I need to take it back.
You also have the opportunity to complete this job because, you know, it's only about a half a day's walk. You have the opportunity to complete the job, drop off the stuff, maybe get a quick rest, and then head out and try to do something about it, because as of this point, that's your only objective, is to get this stuff there. But you're also, the people who hired you, the people who are giving you the money, may be dead.
Arnina, what's your input?
I think, real quick, a question for you, Dustin.
We're going to be wrapping up soon, if you guys were wondering.
So can you repeat really quickly just like what our full mission is, like what
Yeah.
the job is we're doing right now?
Yeah, no problem. So you were hired by two dudes who left about a day ahead of you to meet them in Phandalin to drop off some stuff at a business in town. and they were going to show you something that they found once you got there. You were on the trail. It's been a while that you've been on the trail until you ran into this, and then you found the horses of the two people that hired you. That's the general gist.
One of them was Gundren Rockseeker, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so that's my cousin. So I'm kind of worried that maybe they captured them and took them back to their hideout. So I'd like to at least try and maybe go there and kind of like stake it out and see like what's going on and try and like peek around and see if they're there.
To the
I
castle.
begrudgingly agree.
Yeah.
Fine, I guess we'll save people. And I mean, it's family, so. And I think given
Their family.
given
Not
Armina's
Verna's
kind of background and ideals, I think that would definitely be something that they would want to do. So, okay, so the goblin looks around and kind of gets a sense that you're agreeing, and kind of gets up and points towards the direction that you saw the goblin run away, and looks to you, Sorel, because you're the only one that can talk to him. He's just like, so are we going? Great.
I love that.
Great. I hope you'll protect me on the way because these woods are scary. Here we go. And he starts walking, his little goblin feet ahead of you, and starts to veer off from the path where the goblin took off earlier. And
Can I use some intimidation to make sure he stays with us?
sure, roll an intimidation check.
Oh! Wait. I rolled a natural 3. That means I can re-roll, right? With my lucky?
Yes, you can.
Yes! Good job, Cora. Way to read things.
See, that's the benefit of reading your character sheets.
12.
That's better. Okay,
Out of
let's
12.
Okay, so he looks at you, and you do you just kind of poof up your chest and like that sort of thing towards him?
Yeah, just
Because
threaten him a little bit.
you're a little bit taller than he is. So you kind of give him that like sup sort of look, and he just goes ha, ha, and he keeps his hand up as he's walking, kind of like damn, this was a bad idea. And you can actually hear him, Sorel, go, oh shit. And actually, friends, as you take off and start walking, that is where we are going to end tonight. A quick little introduction, some encounters, some checks, a little bit of adventuring, kind of that exploring, finding stuff. Again, just little sprinkles, little ideas. And I know today was a lot, tonight was a lot. It took a long time. I'm hoping that things get shorter the next time I run this kind of D&D 101 sort of thing. But I really, really appreciate you all. I know this, again, I keep stressing, this was a lot. So not being like fully, not knowing everything is totally understandable. If any of you were overwhelmed, or if, again, if this is something that really feels like in your wheelhouse and you'd like to try again, definitely let me know, because I would love to keep going. And if you want to side chat and talk a little bit more to get more information, or if there's any resources that I can point your way, I want to be able to help you on this D&D journey, whether it's a one and done, or if this is something that you want to keep playing. I just appreciate very, very much that any of you were willing to do this, because this is something I've never done before. And I think overall, aside from it being a little bit boring in some spots, again, I'm sorry, I think it did work, and it's something that I would like to try to do in the future, and maybe even with you guys. So do you have any final thoughts, final statements, final questions, conversations? What's up?
but absolutely like to continue.
Cool. I love that.
And also, I was reading my character sheet, and my name is actually canon for halflings.
Oh, it is?
With the C, but that doesn't matter. So
Hey, you know what? You got to be original. But I know that at least when it got into combat, I could see kind of the cogs turning and the things kind of figuring out of the stuff that I was talking earlier. I think in the future, and I'd love to have like a little bit of a post-mortem offline talking to you guys in text about things that I could potentially do differently next time. But one of the biggest things that I learned is that I think some of this could have been learnt
as you go.
Is that I think me doing all of this information up front was just a little bit much. So I think next time I might space it out a little bit, maybe throw the combat in the middle instead of throwing it all the way at the end. Or maybe even splitting this up, that I just do a video that I can show people as an introduction and just be like, watch this video.
Yes.
And then when you come back to actually play with me on stream, we jump into the combat and know a little bit more. I think that might be a better way. Because I could tell there were a couple moments where I looked at you guys and I could tell in chat, I was like, oh, I'm losing them. This isn't good. But no, overall, you guys, you had a little bit of fun. You learned some stuff. You got a little bit better understanding of how the game works. Again, I really just scratched the surface, but I tried to touch on everything that was going to be possible to happen tonight, so that way you wouldn't be surprised by anything. But yeah, I'm curious, Becca, Jen, because Cora said she wants to play again. Is that something that you would want to maybe a little bit?
Yeah.
Now that it's
definitely.
now that it's not all information at the top, that it's more like a, hey, let's pick up where we left off and go explore the Cragmaw Castle hideout goblin thing. Like, let's just play from there. I think that could be fun. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be on stream. We could just do it on Discord. We could play around, get a little bit more familiar with it, and see what we can do. And that's a scheduling thing, so we'll have to talk there. But I do think this worked out, and I'm really happy that the three of you could be a part of this. And at the end of it, I'm obviously going to close out the server so you don't have to worry about the maps. And then from here, all you have to do is you can just close out of D&D Beyond. You'll still have access to the characters, so if you want to look at them a little bit more, get more familiar, ask me questions, and I'll keep you all in that D&D channel until for some reason we switch to another D&D thing. But I'll keep you all in there so that way you can talk about stuff, learn from each other. If any of you buy books, you can talk about stuff. I want you to be able to stay connected as best you can, even though surprise a little bit that Becca and Jen, you already interacted with each other in the physical realm. But I do think that this can be a fun game if given the chance. And I'd love to be able to go on that journey with you all in another way after this point. So it's good to know that you guys would be interested to do that. So yay.
Justin.
Okay, but any closing words, remarks, comments, anything that you want to say before we log off? Okay. Thank you all so much. Have an excellent night, and I'm going to do my sign-off on stream, and going to call this thing done, I think.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Okay. We did a thing. I need to get off of Discord so that way those noises aren't happening in my ear. So hold on a sec. Perfect. Okay, so everyone. Maybe. There's my mic. Thank you to everyone for stopping by. Things are going to get a little bit smoother the next time that I do this. I noticed very quickly, and a couple of you probably did as well, that we'll touch base, Kelly. Doing this in a very introductory format while trying to make it entertaining for stream, but also informative to others. It got a little bit all over the place, but I do appreciate all of you for sticking by and sticking around. while I was figuring that out, because this is the first real time that I got to do this on stream, so it's only going to get better from here. I do very much appreciate all of you so very much. I gotta close this app real quick, for coming to the stream tonight. It was absolutely awesome. But with that, I think let's check if there's anybody that we can send this thing to, if it's gonna load. We do have Beaky that we can raid over to, so I think we will do that. So click that I'm gonna raid button, so that way we can transfer over there. But I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for stopping by. Design and Conquer, my friends, and I will see you tomorrow morning. Have a great rest of your Saturday and a great night. Good night and goodbye.